Councilmember Klostad.
Here.
Vice Mayor Paulvey.
Here.
Mayor Romack.
Here.
Councilmember Zabriskie.
Here.
And Councilmember Henderson.
Here.
Thanks.
Thank you, Town Clerk Kelly Carpenter. We appreciate that. All right, now on to our Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. It's now time for public comment on our agenda this evening. This is an opportunity for members of the public to address council on any item that is not on the agenda this evening. Please, if you are interested in making a public comment, you can come on up to the podium. Please state your name, and each member of the public will have 3 minutes to make their comments. There is a timer to my left, your right, so you can watch it count down as we will ask you to sit down at the end of your 3 minutes. If anyone would like to make a public comment, you are welcome to come to the podium. Should be right over there. I think Sarah's going to arrange it. And also, if you could make sure your mic has the green light button on. If you hit the button, make sure it's green.
I can't think. My name is Emily Cashton. The Nevada Grand Jury issued in June a 33-page report which identifies poor and erroneous record keeping by Nevada County and decades of problems caused by this town involving West Street Avenue and the surrounding mountainside, resulting in public and private property damage due to lack of maintenance of the road and drainage structures, rendering a dangerous, unsafe road for the public, as well as causing erosion pollution to Donner Lake. The town is in violation of the federal and state Clean Water Act and their own state-required stormwater management program. This council responded to Judge Thompson, and the grand jury stated 4 times that West Street HOA maintains the road. There is no such HOA. This is not a regular issue, so why was it in the consent calendar? The MAP Act, now known as the California Streets and Highway Codes, clearly identifies that West Street was properly dedicated and accepted by Nevada County as reflected in the supervisor's July 1924 minutes, all presented and filed properly according to law, adding West Street to the county road maintenance system. Why didn't 2 attorneys for the town tell you this? In 1993, Lavco Incorporation's documents clearly state all county roads inherited upon incorporation within the Truckee town limits are the responsibility of the town, with services to include snow removal, all which might require a significant investment. There were no exceptions. The town has a legal responsibility for all public roads as in violation of the Lavco contract and several California codes. The town continues to mislead agencies like Lahontan, stating that the road is private, as reflected in a 2022 document. Please review the submitted documents that I asked to have presented to you today and take seriously the town's liability exposure in failing to maintain West Street and drainage structures to a safe level before a serious accident occurs. And provide snow removal as all other residents on Truckee public roads receive. The current grand jury is now further reviewing the issues. There is a 3-minute requirement, so I'm submitting additional comments in writing, and I would appreciate those being attached to the minutes, because when people make public comments and there's nothing that's, you know what they're talking about, this is not representing the public properly. Are there any questions?
Thank you very much. We cannot take questions on public comment because it's not an agendized item. So if you have any time remaining.
That's counter to your little document here, that the town council has the option to ask questions or.
We don't take questions during public comment. That's standard practice because it's not agendized. And it sounds like your 3 minutes are up.
Thanks for your lack of transparency.
Thank you for your comments. Would anyone else like to make a public comment this evening? Seeing none, we will close public comment. And with that, we will move on to our presentations this evening. And I believe first up, we have Andy Morris to administer our oath of office to Kelly Carpenter. Come on up.
Office to town employees, but when the person who has to take the oath is the town clerk, then I get to do it. And for anyone who's wondering what is this all about, the California Constitution says that any public employee has to take an oath of office. And so that's what we're going to do. Are you ready? Okay. Do you remember your own name? That's the only thing that's not here.
Okay.
Okay. I,
Kelly Carpenter.
yes, that one, do solemnly swear
Do solemnly swear
to support and defend the Constitution of the United States
to support and defend the Constitution
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution
against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
against all enemies, domestic.
I bear true faith and allegiance
I
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution
and the Constitution of the State of California.
and the Constitution.
I take this obligation freely,
I take this
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
and that I will
the duties upon which I am about to enter.
the duties upon which I am
Sworn in.
Great job, Andy. And Kelly, we're very excited. You're officially now our town clerk. All right, up next, we're excited to meet more of you in the audience this evening. It's the introduction of new employees, and there's many new faces here. Very exciting to have you all. Feel free to come to any town council meeting. We love having you in the audience. And I believe first up, Riley Morrison is going to introduce some new public works staff.
Thanks, Mayor and Council, for this opportunity to introduce 3 new employees to our road maintenance and snow removal division. We have 3 new street maintenance and equipment operator 2s here today. Our first employee is Justin Fittement. His first day on the job was June 20th, so he's been on the job for 3 months now. His past employment included heavy equipment maintenance with Rupert Inc. and 34 years of managing the lift maintenance department at Sugar Bowl Ski Resort. I asked all 3 of our new employees a couple of tricky questions, and I got some great answers here. One thing that he likes about the job so far is the diverse personalities and skill of the team and willingness to share their knowledge. And then he also observed the overall professionalism here at the town in general, as he observed through the onboarding process. A hobby that he enjoys outside of work is mountain biking, hiking with his wife, Tammy. I think a lot of us are familiar with Tammy. So, Justin, welcome to the team. Our next new employee is Daryl Hogan. His first day on the job was also June 20th, so he's 3 months in, working hard. His past employment included maintaining a fleet of boats for the North Tahoe Marina and some snow removal experience with Elements Mountain Company. One thing he likes about the job so far is the people he's gotten to work with, and that every day is different, and loves working outside. One of his hobbies is snowboarding and spending time with his daughters, Jada and Ruby. So welcome, Daryl. And our last new employee is Dave Dombrowski. His first day on the job was September 11th. So what's that, 2.5 weeks on the job. All right. Which is actually almost the average time of service we've been seeing from new hires at Public Works in the last couple of years. but let's break that mold right here. His past employment included maintenance work and snow removal at North Star Community Service Department, and various paving experience with lakeside paving and blacktop paving and sealing. One thing he likes about the job so far is working outdoors, a variety of the work tasks that we do, and the team is super cool. It's one hobby that he enjoys outside of work. He's an avid backpacker, dirt biker, and snow sports. Welcome to the team, Dave. Thank you.
Thank you, Riley, and welcome to the three of you. Up next, I have Nikki to introduce a new member of your team.
Madam Mayor and Council, we're very, very excited to announce our second Nikki, Nicole. Nicole is joining us as our accountant. We're doing a little bit of a restructure in finance, and so she is going to be taking sole responsibility for our revenue collections process. We're very excited for this transition. Nicole was born in Wellington, New Zealand, but grew up majority of her childhood in Auckland until she moved to Napa in 2011. In 2014, she got really into ski racing, and so she made the transition with her family up to Truckee, and she graduated from Forest Hill Charter in Truckee. So we're excited to bring on somebody who's homegrown, and she got her citizenship in 2020 while she was in college, and she graduated from the University of Denver with a bachelor's in finance and a minor in management. And then she also got her master's degree in applied quantitative finance. That's pretty crazy. Her golden retriever Boulder made a quick appearance at the beginning of the council meeting. We're super excited to bring him onto our team as well. And she also has two kitties, Kiwi and Aspen. She loves the Colorado Avalanche hockey team, and she can't wait for the season to start. She's obviously a great skier, paddleboarder, occasional mountain biker, and she loves Donner Lake. So we're really excited to add Nicole to our team, and she also has the best name.
Would you like, Nikki, can you share Nicole's full name? Councilmember Zabriskie was curious what her last name was. Guess you're taking copious notes.
Her name is Nicole Postlewaite.
Thank you. Welcome, Nicole. All right, up next, Lynn, introducing a new member to your team.
Hello. We are very excited that this year, after a brief break, we have Civic Spark Fellows through AmeriCorps program. They will spend 11 months serving at the town of Truckee. I am excited to introduce Annika Kimmy. You stand up. She will be our housing fellow, working with the housing team and also helping planning in implementing the general plan. Annika grew up in Champaign, Illinois, but she spent the last 4 years in Southern California at Claremont McKenna College, where she graduated this May with a degree in public policy and data science. At Claremont McKenna, she worked at the policy lab helping with research relating to voting, debt collection, and transportation equity. She ran cross country and track since middle school and ran in college at CMC. In her free time, she loves to run, hike, camp, spend time outside, read, bake, and talk to her younger brother. She is very excited to be at the town of Truckee working on affordable housing policy and to learn more about housing planning and the operations of local government. And we are very excited for her to bring her data science and analysis background to our team and do some great data analysis that she will be presenting to council at some point in the future.
Welcome, Annika. I too grew up in Illinois, so I know you're cool. All right, up next, Erin Brewster has two new members of her team to introduce us to.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm very excited to introduce Carmen Lopez. Carmen, our new Sustainability Program Analyst. Carmen is from the San Francisco Bay Area and graduated from UC San Diego in 2021 with a degree in environmental systems and policy. During her time at UC San Diego, she worked at the Sustainability Resource Center on campus, leading community engagement initiatives for the UC Carbon Neutrality Initiative. She was also a social justice peer education intern at the UC San Diego Women's Center, and then a community engagement and diversity fellow for the Scripps Institution of Oceanography DEI team. After graduating, Carmen worked for the City of Oakland Sustainability Team as an Equity and Deep Decarbonization Fellow, doing research and community engagement for the city's existing building electrification policy roadmap. In her free time, she loves traveling, dancing, salsa and a little cumbia, running, yoga, and cooking. So welcome, Carmen. And then I'd like to also introduce Alex Workman. Alex. Alex is our Keep Truckee Green Civic Spark Fellow. He's originally from Fredericksburg, Virginia, and studied history at James Madison University. After graduation, he led a Conservation Corps crew based in Grand Junction, Colorado, doing conservation work on the Western Slope. After that, he worked in the ski resort industry, first briefly up in Washington and then at Kirkwood, where he fell in love with the Sierra Nevada mountains. He's been working in the outdoor tourist industry in South Lake Tahoe for around a year and a half, and just moved up to Truckee to join our program. In his free time, he enjoys all things outdoors, such as snowboarding, backpacking, camping, road trips, fishing, and just exploring and finding new ways to experience the Sierra Nevadas. So, welcome to both of you.
Welcome aboard. And then we have Mike Ross introducing some new folks as well. Is your mic on, Mike?
The building division
There we go.
has two new additions to our staff. First is our new administrative technician, Tricia Baird. Tricia grew up in suburbs of Erie, Pennsylvania, where after high school she attended and graduated from Penn State University, receiving a bachelor's degree in psychology. After graduating, she relocated to Charlotte, North Carolina to pursue and start her career as a social worker in skilled nursing facilities. In 2005, Tricia moved to Truckee, working in retail and education until settling in as what is known now as Sierra Community Housing for the past 16 years. As a community education preventer manager there, Tricia led a strong and successful team in working towards ending violence in the Truckee Tahoe community. In the recent past, Tricia got a pivotal point in her career where a change was needed. It was important that she could continue to work in the community she lived in, played in, which brought her to the town to support the community development team. She's excited to learn, grow in the position, as well as put her communication, organizational, and attention to detail skills to use. Tricia enjoys a healthy work-life balance where outside of work, she is active in mountain intramural sports, sorry about that, spending time with her family, friends, dogs, traveling, and cooking. Let's welcome Tricia. Please stand. And our second addition to the building division is our new building inspector plans examiner, Dustin McLaughlin. Did I say that right? No. Still didn't get it right. We even did a little acronym in there for me to try to follow, but it just doesn't work. Dustin was born and raised on the outskirts of Detroit, Michigan, where he started developing his knowledge in construction. In 2006, he relocated to Big Bear Lakes, where he resided for 15 years, meeting his wife, Chrissy, and advancing his knowledge in the trades. In 2021, they relocated to the Santa Cruz Mountains for a year to advance further in his career. They quickly realized that their hearts belonged in an Ashen Mountain community, and in December of 2022, they moved to Truckee. Following January, Dustin would start his career here with the town of Truckee as a street maintenance worker with Public Works, utilizing his commercial Class A driver's license, keeping the roads clear and safe, operating snow removal equipment this last Snowmageddon year. Until a position opened for a building inspector with the building division, Dustin and his family have expressed how grateful they are to be here in Truckee so that they continue their favorite activities such as skiing, snowboarding, mountain hiking, mountain biking, climbing, golfing, and just, well, about anything outside of those activities. Please, let's welcome Dustin. Thank you, Council.
Thank you very much. Welcome, Tricia and Dustin. And Dustin, how do you say your last name? Macalonen. Okay. We'll probably all forget, but we appreciate you saying that. And then we have Kelly Carpenter to introduce another team member.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. I'm so excited to introduce Taylor Crouch. She's joining the clerk's team. Stand up. Taylor moved from Washington State to Truckee over a year ago. While it was planned to be a short-term stay, she fell in love with the area and this community and decided to make it her home. She graduated from Central Washington University in Ellensburg, Washington, and started working for Kittitas County in the county commissioner's office. She worked there for 3 years and was very involved with the county lodging tax program, the Homelessness and Affordable Housing Committee, and the Board of Equalization. She found that working on this level of government was very rewarding, and she feels blessed to be able to contribute to her new community of the town of Truckee. While not working, she enjoys cuddles with her cats, long walks around Donner Lake, and afternoons with a good book. Welcome, Taylor.
Is that everybody? I think that's everybody. Okay. Well, welcome everyone. It's super exciting to hear everyone's backgrounds and pasts and experience. It's great that we have such a wide breadth of different interests and experience. So thank you all for being here tonight. Up next, another presentation from Jen Calloway, our town manager report.
Great, thank you. I think this is our new strategy to fill the room with all of our new staff for each council meeting, but thank you to everybody for being here. We appreciate that. Just one announcement tonight. Halloween is coming up, and we're hoping the community will swap costumes this year rather than shop for them. So between now and Saturday, September 30th, you can drop off new exchange costumes or swap your costumes in boxes throughout the community. We have one at the rec center, one here at Town Hall, the Truckee Library, and at Kids Zone. You do not have to drop off a costume, but if you want to, you can come back on October 7th and go through what was brought in and pick up a new costume for this year. So that's October 7th, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Community Rec Center. So try out a gently used costume this year rather than buying a new one, and come see what you can find in our treasure boxes. And that's all I have tonight.
Thank you very much, Jen. Comments or questions from council members? Councilmember Henderson?
Well, I just wanted to extend a really warm welcome to all of our new employees, but I know they've mostly left at this point. But I just wanted to say, I mean, it really is a family at the town of Truckee. I think the relationships that we all cultivate here are so incredible, and I'm really excited that we have so many new faces to join in that family.
Thank you. Councilmember Zabriskie? Vice Mayor Pallavi? Councilmember Klövstad?
I'll just ditto you. That was well said. Enjoy, and I really love meeting all of the new people.
Yes, ditto as well. Thank you for staff for sharing all those tidbits and backgrounds again. It's just fun to get to know everybody. All right, with that, we will open it up to public comment. Would anyone like to make any public comment on the presentations that we just heard? Seeing none, we will close public comment. And so then we will move now to our consent calendar. A few items this evening, I will read through them first. Item 6.1, minutes from the September 12th, 2023 Town Council meeting. Item 6.2, adoption of ordinance amending solid waste and recycling requirements. Item 6.3, a cleanup amendment to Municipal Code Title II, Section 2.04.130A. Item 6.4, budget software consultation C2205 contract award. Item 6.5, Municipal Code Update, Chapter 10.21, Vehicles on Trails. Would any members of council like to pull an item from consent? Would any member of staff like to pull an item from consent?
No, Mayor, thank you.
And would any member of the public like to pull an item from consent this evening? Seeing none, I'll bring it back up to here and ask for a motion.
I move we adopt the consent calendar.
Second. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. All right, with that, we will move on to our first discussion item of the evening, item 7.1, the after action report from the July 4th, 2023 fireworks event. And I believe Robert Womack will be presenting this evening.
I'll always forget. Yes, Mayor and Council. I also believe Alfred will be presenting part of this since he had a huge portion of it. Different this year than years in the past. We actually did an after-action report to kind of try and go for lessons learned. One of the things about after-action reports, they're very common in emergency management. We look at them as, what was supposed to happen, what actually happened, and what can we learn? How can we be better? So that is a portion of what we're doing. It was developed in cooperation with all our participating agencies in the 4th of July event. This is specific to the West End, not the whole day. It was reviewed by all the agencies prior to bringing it forward to the council, but the final draft was completed by the town staff, so it's important to note that there was some work done after we had completed that portion to bring it forward. So just some basic numbers. We know the population, or we estimate the population in attendance at the fireworks for the Donner Lake area to be about 20,500, which comes out to about 10,000 residents, 10,500 spectators. I love round numbers. I just got lucky though. And part of that is because we looked at vehicles that traveled from the West End. We were able to count vehicles that left up Donner Lake Road and there are vehicles that traverse through the Coldstream roundabout, and that was 2,500 vehicles, and we use roughly 4 people per vehicle. It's nice down there. There is a lot of, I call it carpooling. I'm old school, but people are, certainly cars are packed, so 4 is a safe number. It took approximately an hour and a half to clear traffic from the West End to the point where we were returning back to normal traffic patterns. About an hour for the East End, the Coldstream roundabout area. We had over 20 police officers. That includes boat officers, neighborhood patrol, supervisors, etc. 2 battalion chiefs, 3 engine crews. The Forest Service provided 1, CAL FIRE provided 1, and Truckee Fire provided 1. Which is a total of 11 personnel that worked the event. So it was well staffed. We'll talk more about that. The show itself was about 22 minutes long. Pretty good reviews from the folks that I talked to. Town costs were approximately $50,000. Different than years in the past, we actually had a budgetary code item that we could code our time to. So it was a little easier to track. We're working to try and do that better in the future, so that we can get a better understanding of what costs are for some of these things. And we'll talk more about this, but it does include hard costs and the pre-event planning. So often that gets overlooked, and it's only the day of the event that we think about. But this is a large-scale event. It takes a lot of planning effort by all our staff in different departments. So some strengths and issues, just kind of the highlights. There was definitely team coordination of everybody for event planning. No doubt that helped this event come off with really no large-scale issues. We had some minor ones that cascaded, and we'll talk about those. Interestingly enough, a lot of us were really trying to figure out what the Coldstream roundabout was going to look like and how that was going to work. We've all heard the stories over the years about how roundabouts do and don't work, and we get it. But it was actually a huge success. And CHP commented on how much easier it was to manage that intersection than it had been in years past. They typically handle that intersection for us. As I noted, the traffic in that area was out in about an hour. One reason it did work the way it did is we had no westbound traffic on Donner Pass Road back into the lake for that hour's worth of time. That did create some issues. It certainly created some issues for people that were trying to get in, trying to get home. and also created an issue for Tahoe Donner HOA because they couldn't get their buses through the queue of traffic. So something we'll have to try and address next year. We've certainly heard some of that before, but if we don't close that, you can kind of look at the diagram there. It slows traffic down immensely because the westbound traffic is going to want to cut through there. Law enforcement staffing was adequate for a weekday event. There's certainly different staffing when we talk about, or attendance when we talk about weekday versus weekend. One thing that we don't talk a lot about, but we had a dedicated dispatcher from the county. There is a cost, we do pay for that. But having that dispatcher and having our own channel where we weren't conflicting with all of the traffic on the west side made it much easier for a couple of things. One, much easier to track events. In the past, officers would not get on the radio because it was just so busy. They would handle events, bypass it, and on to the next thing. So we had a better tracking system this year. But it certainly makes it safer for our officers because if something happens, they have immediate access to a radio. The public beach, where, the Recreation Park District, very well managed with few, if any, issues, none that we actually responded to this year. Certainly they've learned how to manage that well, and they do a good job inside the fences in taking care of their beach, which is nice. Parking continues to be an issue in several areas. There's a couple of pictures there. One, folks will park in bike lanes just because they don't think that parking tickets are a real great deterrent. And then unfortunately, we did have the issue on Donner Lake Road where people, you can see, they were willing to park next to a guardrail, really in the traffic lane. There's no way when you have 50 or 60 cars parked like that you're going to tow them out of there at that point. So more about that a little bit later, but some lessons learned there because it totally changed our transit routing. And I'm sure Alfred will speak to that because of some things we had to do there. And then we'll talk more about this at the end, but the fireworks exclusion area, part of it's on private property. And there are some concerns with exactly how that exclusion area can be managed. The town this year, for the first time ever, had a targeted messaging campaign for the 4th of July. We used Clean, Safe, Fun. East River Partners were the folks that helped develop that. We shared that on social media outlets. We had we had posters in English and Spanish for multifamily housing. The businesses downtown, the chamber shared those out. Really tried to promote that whole idea of clean, safe, fun. We did a community spotlight on KTKE 101.5 to spread messaging. Again, trying to reach that local base and anybody that might be in town that's listening to 101.5. And then Visit Truckee Tahoe hosted a landing page for us with FAQs, timelines, shuttle services, and they continued really messaging out that clean, safe, and fun event through their channels. So this was completely different for us this year, with a goal towards trying to push out a consistent message ahead of time. As far as trash, environmental, and litter mitigation, our crew had the Leave No Trace messaging from Truckee Keep Truckee Green. We had trash bags and dumpsters provided at the Park and Ride shuttle parking lot to help with that. Truckee Donner Rec and Park District did a litter cleanup on July 5th to help. Wasn't a lot of leftover litter, so that was actually a positive. We also had portable toilets paid for Truckee Donner Rec and Park District that were placed strategically along Donner Pass Road and the dock piers because, as we know, there's really no restrooms in those areas and people stay on those docks all day long. So, human is human. You can only do what you can do. So tried to work with that. Refillable water bottle stations were provided in working with our other programs with not having plastics. Got to give them somewhere to get the water. But we do look at this and, come a busier weekend, it's going to be that much more mitigation effort that we're going to need to do. With that, over to Alfred.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of Town Council. I'll take a few slides here. implemented new this year is a event-specific shuttles specifically for the fireworks. So here's just a schematic, and we did learn a lot of things through this process, but we also did learn essentially if we provide alternatives, people will use them. The difference between the parade shuttle, which we had, I added some numbers on this, you'll see in a second, but essentially about the same number used the parade shuttle this year as used the fireworks shuttle. So first year, I have to say that I'm rather impressed with how our community responded. And the fact that this was a park and ride shuttle. So we had to intercept people that were in their cars, which is some of the hardest things to do is once somebody's in their car is to get them back out of their car. So as opposed to our Truckee Thursday shuttles and our parade shuttles, which are neighborhood shuttles where people kind of walk out and get on the bus directly. So we had a lot one, which is essentially kind of the administrative lot, the front lot. And we parked that out and had some parking down on lot 2. And then we did take all of these lots and sign all of these in case we didn't really know what the turnout was really going to be. And as Bob mentioned, we had a very, very high occupancy rate also, which did help minimize a lot of the parking because people did still show up in 4 to 5 people per car. Another thing that restored my faith in humanity is we tried to hand out trash bags to a lot of people, and I would say about 80% of those people already had come with their trash bags. So we tried to be a one-stop shop for everything. This is where the bike valet was also stationed. One of the lessons learned, I think, from that, it really wasn't that successful. We did want to intercept people on their bikes also before they kind of got into the hornet's nest of West End Beach. But what we heard from people is that they rode their bike to want to ride all the way there. So maybe there's an opportunity to better accommodate it closer to West End Beach rather than thinking that people would transfer again and again. But we did have a few people use it, but it was very, very underutilized, just to be honest. And we did have restrooms there and also waste receptacles and also water bottle filling stations I think can be more strategically placed also. We did put them down towards the lot 2 and 3, those didn't park out. So when people had to use the restroom, we had to direct people all the way down there to go walk down. But the bus did. I told them to stay down there. The bus will come pick them up. So there was a lot of communication that was required. But it did work very well, and people were very receptive. The other thing is better signage on Donner Pass Road in advance of where the Tyler Donner shuttle is, because people did get confused there. But we didn't, not that we had any evidence of people getting mistakenly on the right shuttle or wrong shuttle. So next slide, please. And so here's some of the ridership, and one of the ridership numbers that you don't have in your report, and I do apologize for that because I didn't want to mix apples and oranges here with numbers because we were focused on 4th of July, but I did feel it was important to tell the whole story of transit that day. We did have very, very low ridership on our dial-a-ride and fixed route because a lot of it ceased during the parade and people just don't really use it, and especially when we have TART Connect as an option. So when the parade's going on, the fixed route on the Truckee local stops and doesn't operate, and then people, we do start it back up. But so we do have very low ridership on that day. We did have a record ridership day though on TART Connect, and which is very, I wouldn't say surprising because we did expect it, but we also blocked out the area of Donner Lake itself so that TART Connect vehicles didn't get stuck down there and or didn't get, all of our fleet wasn't stuck and the rest of the community couldn't get a shuttle anywhere. So the fact that we did have this high ridership throughout the rest of town shows that it really wasn't in that firework necessarily the area of Donner Lake. It was really throughout the town. So people were really moving about town as we want them to without their automobile. So the parade ridership, so you couple that together with our fireworks ridership, again, very high ridership in terms of really a first year service, rolling something out. It's really encouraging that people did respond, and we did hear a lot of that just verbally from talking to people, and I can speak to that a little anecdotally in a moment. But throughout the whole day, we carried almost 3,000 passengers, and that's historically over our average years. That's about 10% of our annual ridership in about one day. So the community, again, did respond, and that doesn't account for all the people on bikes and walking. And yes, there were a lot of people in cars also, but I think we saw a lot of mode shift through other options that were provided. Next slide. And so these are pictures I just captured throughout the day. One thing I do want to say too is that I think we did strike a really good balance because we didn't overpromise and underdeliver. One of my fears was that we were going to trickle in all these people throughout the day, and then holy crap, we have 4,000 people to move and we only have 4 buses. So we did balance it, I think, fiscally responsibly and kind of planning. and understanding a little bit what the demand was. And as Bob mentioned, we got everybody out there, including bus riders, transit riders, shuttle riders, within about an hour, hour and a half. So 2 cycles of the buses got everybody out of there. We didn't leave anybody waiting for a third kind of slug through there, which would have probably taken another 30 minutes on there. So leaving people about 2 hours versus hour and a half by car, everybody was comparable in their travel time. Some of the signage could have been a little bit better in some areas too, especially down by West End Beach where we did pick up people. We did adjust on the fly and put some stop locations out there well before the fireworks ended, so people did know. And the drivers are very, very good. The great thing about having North Star as a partner, and we do pay them for it, so they're a partner in the sense that they understand the needs of the town and our visitors and our residents. Is, you know, when you're trying to tell skiers and snowboarders where to go, they're not always listening. They're on vacation. You know, sometimes they're not paying attention. So they're used to dealing with a lot of those same people that used our system that day as well. Next slide. And I didn't plan on putting a lot of bike stuff in here, but since there were some questions on the council, questions on the staff report, just wanted to kind of highlight some of the bike experience as well. So we did have the Truckee Trails Foundation pop up down there. We created some visibility, but again, we maybe want to look at a different location for that to make it better utilized, concentrate the bikes a little bit better. And then, as you can see, the parking lot itself was at full occupancy before sundown. And then we did have additional parking to the south lots of there, which would actually be the east lots. So next slide. And I think that's it. Yes, and Bob will kind of go through these a little bit. But recommendations-wise, we had adjust a few on the fly in terms of how we got buses in and out there. I think there's some opportunity for improving transit access just through communication. We did kind of, again, just on the fly where we would radio or talk to officers holding traffic and make sure that they knew to let the bus through and not hold the bus with the rest general purpose traffic and little things like that. But we did have a lot of lessons learned. But I think all in all, it was a very good, I won't even call it a litmus test, but a community test. And I think the community passed.
Thank you, Alfred. So recommendations.
Mike, can you turn your mic on?
I just left it on. So recommendations. One thing we did do, or actually CHP did, is they reassigned themselves on the fly. They realized the Coldstream was running fine, but because of our parking issues, we had to redesign the actual DLI Donner Lake interchange area. And so we used extra CHP officers. They became extra because we didn't need them at Coldstream there to control traffic. So we don't reduce the number of officers because we had to shift them. But we were able to do that on the fly, and we'll plan for that in the future. We definitely need to strengthen our no parking areas. One thing about, it's human nature. If you don't have a sign with flagging and 5 more signs, and somebody patrolling it, you're probably going to get somebody to park in there. And once one person's in there, everybody else will. And that's really what happened to us on Donner Lake Road and narrowed that into one lane. And we were planning to use the downhill section of that to get our buses for our shuttle service in that way. So we need to patrol that earlier. We probably need to look at better signage, more coning, and like I said, flagging tape will help those areas to try and keep that from being a problem. Certainly, as Alfred said, we need to continue to prioritize mass transit to not only increase ridership, but continue to keep those delays reduced as far as we can. Whether or not we're able to, we get to a point where we're running more than, I like that, 2 slugs. But the fact is, a third would have added great time. But if we can do it faster by prioritizing the transit, then that certainly makes it a more enjoyable experience and people more likely to use that. Pre-event messaging, we did do a lot of communications, but the shuttle service we probably could have done a better job with of letting people know. But as Alfred said, we had to kind of balance that with how good is it going to be and what capacity do we have. We kind of ran into the same issue with the bikes. Most of that area down there is pitch black. And particularly this year with the popularity of e-bikes, we were just a little bit concerned about what would happen when we started mixing e-bikes, pedestrians, and vehicles all in a fairly limited space. So we learned from that. We'll look at better ways to, include bike traffic down there, but do it safely. We really do need to consider our safety zones for pedestrians on Donner Pass Road west of Donner Lake. So between Donner Lake Road and South Shore Drive, we turned that into 2 lanes exiting. Side note, this is really a great training for figuring out how evacuations look. I hate to say that, but it's true. But what we found is that our pedestrians are mixing with our vehicles. It slows down our vehicles, and it also puts them in a, kind of a tenuous position. So we're looking at increasing further no parking areas there to use that for pedestrians while still allowing for the travel lanes for vehicles. One thing that came out, and this was the first year that I actually realized there was a after fireworks event report provided by the company, and also that there was some pre-planning. And bad on me, I didn't ask, but I didn't realize it was a requirement. But once I knew about it, we asked, and one of the things, that picture on the upper right is a picture of their exclusion zones. The little purple squares were a low detonation. The company talks about that being fairly normal, quality control being what it is with fireworks. Not my profession, but not comfortable to a certain extent. But nonetheless, it was still well within the exclusion zone. The yellow exclusion zone is the National Fire Protection Agency's recommended distance. In the fire service, that's almost like law. It's about as close to law as it can get. So if you look, part of that does start to cover the beach area. It's a kind of weird green picture, but that's landmass there of the private beach. And then the red is actually what the company looks at for an exclusion zone. You can look how far that pushes back into the neighborhood and some other things. So those are things that we're going to have to address next year, because now we know that exists, and you kind of look at the photo and understand where folks are sitting on that private beach. Certainly something we're going to have to address. Even the fireworks company agrees that those are things we need to look at for next year. And then just some other photos of the parking, the car that's being towed there because they were in such a hurry, they pretty much drove their car off the road and left it sitting almost in the creek at the Summit Creek. And then just an overall aerial shot. I was trying to find a good shot of the parking issues we see. But if you kind of look at that one, that big white thing is a boat, and the cars next to it are, cars. And when you put cars and anything on the sides of those roads down there, they're fairly narrow. You really start to talk about access issues. So those are things we need to address going forward. So that's really it for my presentation. Certainly welcome to take any questions or address any other issues.
Thank you very much, Bob and Alfred. We will start with questions from council. Councilmember Zabriskie.
I have only a few questions, and they're minor, given the comprehensiveness and the clarity of the report, along with the answers to the written questions. My first 2 questions are just from personal experience. I got a ride out in the evening to the West End Beach, and when I came out of the gate to go home, I had to guess where to get on the bus, and just assumed it would be at the fixed route bus stop, which it was, but there could be other people. It sounds like you're already all over that, though, that you're already aware of that issue. You already identified it.
Yes, and I was out there personally directing people and yelling and kind of getting people all kind of corralled up and everything, because yes, even though we put the sign out there once the sun went down, I think we even a light plant in that area for some of the conflicts and visibility and just overall awareness.
All right. And then when I got back to the high school, as soon as I get off the bus, someone says, "Do you know where the Tahoe Donner bus stop is?" I had no idea, but it also sounds like you're all over that. You're aware of trying to correct any misunderstandings of people about where things are.
Yeah, and most of those came to light literally the day of, where we were, well, I wonder if people know not to go over to the Tahoe Donner shuttle. Well, maybe I should go there and talk to the driver. So yes, a lot of that was done on the fly, but it can be done better with pre-planning for sure.
Okay. I didn't see anything in the report about the amount of pollution created by the fireworks. Do we know if that information is available from the rec district? I mean, I think it would have to come from, that they would be the agency that would have to get the information from their contractor, but is that something we'll ever be able to go acquire?
The rec district is here, so Sven may want to offer, but I don't believe there was any pre-water and after-water testing samples taken to determine that.
Okay. Okay, so maybe that'll be a question for Sven. I was thinking even the manufacturer should know what they're emitting in the way of contaminants.
We don't have that information.
Yes, okay. I'm assuming, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that issues about how the town is going to address fireworks next year, how much it's going to contribute to the event, and the effort to which the community might want to have a separate venue to reduce the impact of the population on Donner Lake, that will be something that comes up later in another council meeting, and if so, when?
The time to have that conversation is when we come back with the special events permit policy. We committed to starting that discussion in fall, so in the coming weeks, coming couple months, we'll be back having that conversation and getting feedback from community and council as to what you'd like to see in that policy.
Okay, and that will be with an awareness of the time scale that the rec district has to operate under in terms of planning their 4th of July event.
We will certainly let the rec district know when we're scheduling that to come back, but they typically think about planning for the fireworks at the end of the calendar year, early part of next calendar year. So our goal is to get that back in front of you before they need to decide where they're going to move forward and what that looks like.
Okay, thank you. Those are all my questions.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Pallavi?
Well done, guys. That was a really awesome report. Appreciate that. Just a couple of quick ones. Did we do any ticketing in some of those pictures that you showed? I don't know, Danny's here, Bob, whoever.
No, well,
Yeah.
I know the answer. I was down there.
Good. Yeah.
No, we did not do any ticketing.
Yeah, we didn't have the capacity.
We did not have the capacity, and amazingly enough, actually, the one car with the picture, both the cars moved when we got down there to ticket them.
Oh, good.
So
They were paying attention.
Yeah, somewhat luckiness, but no, we really felt, looking at the whole situation, that ticketing, given the signage and the way it started to blow over in the wind and some other things, that would not have been an appropriate measure.
Mm-hmm.
We worked around it. The rec department made an announcement. I believe they also made one for the buses, but they definitely made one for the parking. All that seemed to get us to a point where our drivers were able to turn around safely.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that is a takeaway, though, if in the future for any event down there, just parking in the bike lane or near the bike lane. You saw some of those photos on the eastern part of Donner Pass Road. That's really hard to get pedestrians walking down there, bicyclists and cars.
Yeah, no, I would agree with it, and sometimes ticketing's the only way to go, even though people don't necessarily like that, but it generally will prevent further behavior of such. What was the route, this maybe for Alfred, were the buses going just westbound on Donner Pass Road along the lake, or were they taking the highway and then getting off at DLI and doing a circle that way?
On the egress or ingress on
basically both directions, I would ask.
They were going down Donner Pass Road during the kind of congested hours, and then we switched them over, especially on the egress to get people out. They did go up 80 and come down, but then when they ran into parking issues with they not being able to get back down, we switched them back over. So there was a lot of kind of traffic control, if you will, just on the fly. But I think some of the things we talked about with on the shoulder parking and limiting that up DLI, the preference would be to I-80 and do this loop that way the whole time. So,
and that would reduce conflict, I would think, as well, for the most part, to make it run smoother. No, really well done, and I applaud all of the resources that you guys all personally put in as well. So you should be commended. My only comment was, as a parent who was picking up heading westbound, I'm sure you guys heard my story. I think Captain, what's your title these days? Captain Vickers, Lieutenant Vickers? Lieutenant Vickers, sorry, he was out there, and I think there was just a lot of us who were hanging out at that area of town, thinking we were going to pick up our non-driving children at 10 o'clock at night. I didn't know that westbound was going to be closed, so I think also some information on that westbound. No, just if we knew that, then everybody meets out further or whatever. So just having that communication there, because cell phone coverage was spotty at best at that time of night out there. So otherwise, extremely well done. Thank you.
Just to follow up on that is we did cite 8 vehicles and tow 2. So there were some sites.
Excellent work out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Klopstad.
Thank you. Great questions, everybody. Those were a couple of mine. The only one I'd love for you to answer, Bob, you did such a great job of it at the Emergency Preparedness Town Hall, and we had a public comment about it, is the alternative second evacuation route through the state parks. Can you explain what that would be and what your perspective of that alternate route is?
Sure. I will tell you that we're working on more of a formal response to that. Just time constraints. It is rather involved, but we don't recommend that for a variety of reasons. One, that roadway is not maintained as an evacuation route currently. We had state parks trim the brush in there for the sole purpose of getting emergency vehicles in through that area, realizing that if we were evacuating people out, they would likely go South Shore to Donner Pass Road and congest that to a point where we couldn't use it. So the work that was done in there was done with the goal of being able to, at the bare minimum, get a fire truck through. They love their trucks, but they're willing to scrape them up on brush. A lot of people aren't, and one of the problems that road faces is that it runs across a bunch of wetland area with a spring that was running heavily this year. And we were really afraid that if a car got off, it would get stuck, and we would create a complete backup in there. That continues on for the whole question of that area. The state park was never designed to have the addition of people coming out of the West End and South Shore, and we know that we cleared that in about an hour, and we cleared the West End in a little bit more, but an hour and a half. So shifting traffic there may not really help and could create a lot of issues in there. And we've worked with state parks, we've worked with Truckee Fire to try and figure out what's the best way to do this. And like I said, there'll be a more formal response to the public comment that we're going to circulate. But in general, that is not the area we recommend. It is there. We all know it's there. But we want people to go out South Shore onto Donner Pass Road. This year, Donner Pass Road up and over the summit, Old 40, was closed. But if it's open, then we actually have 2 ways out of that area. We have wide lanes to get people to the freeway, and that's always been our thing, is the sooner we can get you on the freeway, the sooner we can get you out of the area. So going around on a bunch of 2-lane roads and in the park even worse is not the optimum.
Thank you. Much appreciated. That's it.
Thank you. Councilmember Henderson.
Thank you. I don't have any further questions. I sort of want to reiterate, I think this report was so helpful, not just in all of the successes of the event, but really where we can improve as a town and as a community and with our partnerships. So I just wanted to thank you for all of the work that went into this, and I think it's really valuable for our community. Well,
thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Henderson. I ditto that. Just one question. You mentioned, it took an hour and a half to clear traffic from West End. Do you have any comparison to years past, and how long things took in the past from anyone's work?
That's been about the standard for the last couple. I mean, we had to break because of COVID, so you have to drop back a couple of years. But it's been in that realm. We've used the same traffic pattern, more or less the same traffic pattern, little nuances and tweaks for several years, probably 10 or more years. So we kind of got that dialed as to how we're doing it. So time frame is right where we would expect it would be.
Thank you. All right. Appreciate that report. We will now open it up to public comment. If anyone would like to make a public comment on this item, you're welcome to come on up to the podium. Please state your name. And as mentioned earlier, everyone will have 3 minutes. And there's the timer to my left, your right. So don't be shy. Come on up and make sure that the microphone is green on the button.
Good evening, Mayor Romack and council members. Nice to see you guys. Sven Leff, General Manager of the Rec and Park District. First of all, I want to thank you guys for issuing the permit back in February. I think we had a stellar summer, 4th of July, all day, not just at the 4th of July, at the beach. If you were in town, I hope you enjoyed the holiday as much as we did, and including with the chamber and all the stuff downtown. It was just a marvelous day. It was fun to be a part of. We are also very happy with it. I think allowing the permitting this year proved to generate a heck of a lot of good information and data and studies that was all anecdotal prior to, whether it was from public safety or transportation or whatever from us. I think that proved to be very beneficial, and was also very pleased with the report and the amount of work Bob and Chief and other staff, including with the fire departments, included us in the preparation of that, and we stand by what was shared with you guys today. To see to Councilman Zabrisky's question, I don't have the answer about the pollution. We'll work with fire and with Zambelli Fireworks, that's their name, to see if they have any estimates. We do know what shells and how many shells were fired, their size and stuff, so some estimates can be figured out. And yes, the main recommendation about the fallout zone going over into the Donner Lake Property Owners Beach is a very significant one for us to work with. First, I think one option we'll do with Zambelli is, can we change the trajectory a little bit more over the water to protect the people? And then second, with the Property Owners Association, how about the safe zone on their side of the creek as well? So I'll work on that piece. And then Town Manager Callaway was correct. We look at our permitting for next year around December or January. So we're eager to see the future conversations about the special event policy revisions. Hope to be a part of those conversations, or at least be aware of them, as we know the town has more and more activity going on, and you guys are looking for a revision there, and that's coming. So all in all, we're just pleased. We're happy. I'm here if there are other questions that haven't been asked, and I can always be reached after the meeting as well. So thanks again, you guys.
Thank you very much, Sven. Is there any other public comments? Seeing none, we will close public comment, and we will bring it back up here for any discussion. Councilmember Zabriskie?
The conclusion of the report reflects my understanding of the situation with the 4th of July. I mean, the content and presentation was excellent. That is so much valuable information. And the conclusion points out that this has been a positive community experience, and 2023 continued the trend. And then the conclusion goes on to say there's still issues, like what would happen if there were a sudden catastrophe we had to address, or a much larger crowd. Those are still issues out there, and we need to have further conversations on that point. I noticed that the numbers show that at West End Beach, 3,700 tickets were sold. Yet we're talking about a crowd of 20,000. So that onslaught of spectators is largely occurring outside of the rec district's operation, and it seems like that's where we need to be focusing. But already I'm talking about what we're going to discuss in the future. So I'm going to leave it at that. I think it was a great report. Thank you for the information. I'd look to our further discussion about next summer.
Thank you very much. Vice Mayor Pallavi?
Yeah, nothing much more to add. I agree. I think it was a great report. Thank you. I also agree moving that bike valet down, and maybe even having two, one somewhere further up on the lake, one further down by West End would make a whole lot of sense. I would agree with you on bike behavior. People aren't looking to bike and then get on a bus and then come back to their bikes. That's probably antithetical to why people were biking down there in the first place. But as we continue to experiment with all of that, I think there's obviously just a huge opportunity to help it out and improve it. So great work. I hope we can continue to hold events like this in the future and continue to learn from them and put them on in a really positive way. So thanks for your work, everybody, on this.
Thank you. Councilmember Klofstad.
I agree. The time and attention to detail in this report was really fantastic and enlightening. I agree with Sven. It's so good to actually have the data to back up the anecdotal commentary that I receive a lot of. And I really want to express my thanks to all the entities that participated in the event and in this report. It's amazing to me how many entities and individuals it takes to put this on for the enjoyment of so many people. So I appreciate everybody's participation. It's also incredibly validating to know our roundabouts work well. I really liked seeing that in there. As we all know, we have invested a lot in making that transition in our community, and that is very validating as well. So thank you. Great job. Look forward to perhaps doing more analytics on these types of events so that we can do better in our planning and preparation, particularly as it comes to protecting our community in the case that we have an event that is combined with some sort of emergency response. I know that's everybody's major anxiety about this, but reports like this can only help us prepare for that type of an unfortunate combination of events. So thank you to everybody.
Thank you. Councilmember Henderson.
Thank you. Yeah, I think we have so many great lessons learned from this. We have great opportunities to improve, just like we do with anything that we do as a community. I think that, as we move forward, having the data, to just reiterate, it'll be really interesting as we move towards midweek versus weekend type events. So next year, 4th of July is a Thursday, but then 2025, it's a Friday. You're moving into that weekend type event. So just to understand what our data trends look like and if we need to staff differently, et cetera. And then I think one of the things that I'm really interested in, sort of to Vice Mayor Pahlavi's point earlier, just related to public safety and evacuation, is really making sure that, we're educating people in advance, increasing awareness around no parking in the bike lanes. Yes, so citations on the day and what staffing would need to look like for that. I mean, we do it in the winter. You can't park on the side of the street starting November 1st. So this is not an atypical thing. We don't have signs every 50 feet that state that in our community. We don't have sign pollution related to that, but we have enough that people know that that's an unacceptable behavior. So I think it should be similar for this type of event in the future. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I echo many of the same sentiments. Really appreciate the hard work from everybody. Sven, you and your team, Bob, Elford, Danny, everyone on the town staff and all the other partners, Jessica and others who put out messaging. This was an exciting community event. It's really great to learn how much everybody pivoted, like learning about the CHP moving their resources and buses and all that stuff. So it's I think great for all of us to learn of how much effort goes into planning as well as day of event. So really appreciate staff's efforts on the day as well. It wasn't just, all right, we planned it, we're good. It's how can we continue to make this better? Appreciated Councilmember Klofstad's perspective of, roundabouts good. Also transit good, almost 3,000 people taking transit. That's so exciting. And the more we provide opportunities for people to take transit and get out of their vehicles, the better. So I think it's just really exciting how our community is embracing transit. So that's it. Thank you all. Appreciate the report. I think we only had to receive it, so it has been received. Thank you. All right, we will move on to our next agenda item. This is item 7.2, Public Art Commission of Truckee Annual Work Plan and Funding.
Okay, thank you very much, Mayor and members of the council. It's my pleasure tonight to provide a presentation to talk about the Public Art Commission of Truckee, or PACT's annual work plan, and a funding discussion. Just to provide a little background, in July of 2019, the town of Truckee adopted your first public art master plan. And one of the policies in that master plan was to establish a Public Art Commission committee or advisory group. So in September 2020, earlier in that 2020, there was a resolution was adopted by council to form the Public Art Commission, which I'll be referring to as the PAC, the Public Art Commission of Truckee. And in September 2020, they held their first meeting, and they've been meeting monthly ever since, for the most part. One of the responsibilities of the PACT is to develop an annual work plan, and then that gets presented to town council. This is the first one that we've presented to town council. So getting things going a little bit. We're a little late. We weren't quite doing them annually, but here's your first opportunity to sort of see what the annual work plan could look like. It's supposed to talk about things like program development activities, looking at opportunity sites, funding, art maintenance, things like that. And your list of current art commissioners is listed here on the bottom of this slide. And I just want to take a moment to appreciate them and all the work that they put into the art commission. They spend a lot of time at the meetings. There's a meeting every month. They have to prepare for the meeting. They also do, as a commission, they do a lot of work outside meetings. And I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the things they've accomplished to date. And a lot of that didn't happen in the, in the meetings themselves. A lot of the commissioners took it upon themselves to do work outside of those meetings. So the work plan that I'm going to be presenting, I just want to kind of set up the council discussion a little bit. So the work plan's got a lot of different things in there, a big list of things that the Art Commission has identified as being priorities or things that they want to work on. There's programs and plans. There's some discussion about a funding strategy. The idea that we want to continue to do some promotion outreach of public art and actual art installations. But then we're also limited and constrained about how many resources we have to put towards it. So, looking at the annual work plan and what's in there, it's more than we could probably do with our existing resources as we're currently approaching it. So, the PACT has limited time. We have a certain amount of staff resources that we can contribute, and then also funding constraints. The work plan itself, this was my attempt at trying to kind of graphically display what's in there and the work plan. There's really kind of 4 categories of things that are discussed. There's the art installations themselves. Where do we want to put new art pieces? There's new or ongoing programs, like do we want to look at a temporary art pilot project? Do we want to have a program that talks about youth art with the schools? And then there's this sort of promotion of existing art and outreach. So maintaining the public art inventory, updating the public art master plan, things like that. And then obviously there's the funding piece too. And how do we continue to fund art? So for tonight, what we're looking for is some direction from council. Really 2 primary questions. Where is the priority for the council in terms of what direction should we be going with this, the work plan and the work of the PACT, and then also should we be maintaining the current level of staff resources? Should we be providing more or less? Are we sort of where you want to see us? And the idea is that our staff's proposal is that we think of the work plan as sort of a living document. What we would do is take the direction we received tonight from the council. We would actually use that to inform our next update to the town-wide work plan, the one that happens quarterly. And then our recommendation would be to take this information and then kind of concurrent with the budget process, do a new update to the work plan. So moving forward, we'll have an annual art work plan that kind of feeds into the budget process and helps that discussion. So now to what's in the work plan itself. So there's basically 6 sections in the work plan. There's a discussion about the accomplishments to date, projects that are under development. There's some future opportunity sites, some expenditures and funding summaries, some an anticipated schedule, and then some upcoming goals just as a summary. So I'm going to get into a lot of these little sections here and some coming up slides. So first, I think is the fun part, accomplishments to date, the things that the PACT has worked on since they started. One thing that they did, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, is they drafted an art donation and gifting policy. And one of the directions or the recommendations tonight is for the council to provide direction and accept that policy just so we have something in place if there is a future project. The other thing that the Art Commission did is they developed the public art inventory. That includes photos of existing public art, descriptions, and there's even a map. So that was really one of those things that the Art Commission worked on outside of the meetings and is a pretty significant inventory. So it's a great accomplishment. The Brockway Road wall art, we just had a ribbon cutting not too long ago. So that was a lot of effort from the Art Commission. We went actually through 2 rounds of looking at submittals. They worked on the development of the request for proposals, helped with the selection, or actually did the selection process, and then subsequently had meetings to talk about what are our lessons learned, what would we change the next time, and making recommendations for next time we do a call for artists. And they also provide a lot of guidance on the implementation because we have a lot of knowledge on our Art Commission that helps provide some technical expertise to the staff as well. They have provided guidance on the Donner Lake Litter Recycled Sculpture Project, which is underway. We hope to have an unveiling next month. They provided recommendations to staff on the appropriateness of a mural on the Truckee Tahoe Lumberyard property. They worked on a grant application and submitted it. Staff submitted it. The work that they did to try to get funding for an update to the art inventory. It wasn't successful, but it was still a significant effort. And then they developed a list of opportunity sites, which is actually part of the work plan. So talking about the opportunity sites, these tables are not meant to be read like on this slide. I just wanted to show there's a lot of opportunity sites that are identified in this plan. It originally started with sites of like, where do we want to put public art? But then it kind of grew from there where it also includes annual ongoing projects or programs or things like that. And just anything that would be a work item that would be in the work plan. Also want to just point out that the tables that are provided at the back of the work plan, they sort of list the opportunity and talk about things like, is there a potential for grant funding? What's the level of difficulty? What is the estimated cost? And there's even a column that sort of talks about how it ties to council priorities. And I have slides if you want to get into the details on those. So funding and costs. Currently, there's a CIP 2308 for the Public Art Master Plan implementation. There's a total of $300,000 in that CIP, and that's funding for this fiscal year all the way through 24-25. $200,000 in the general fund, $100,000 is the American Rescue Plan Act funds. To date, we've basically allocated roughly $120,000, so there's still $180,000 left for future projects. But when you add up all the costs of all the projects that are identified in the, I would say this fiscal year, next fiscal year, and sort of the short term, it ends up that we have a funding shortfall. If you add up all those projects that are sort of on the list, you would have a funding shortfall of somewhere between $300,000 to $500,000. And so one of the things that's identified in the work plan as a future, as a priority and something the commission has been interested in is looking at a long-term funding strategy for art as the town moves forward. And that can take the form of a % for arts kind of program, which is, the town would set aside a certain amount of money for art implementation, but it could also take the form of like, incentives to private development to install art. It could take the form of either like an in lieu, something in the development code that requires public art be installed, or there's an in lieu fee. So there's a lot of different forms that can take. And it can be something as simple as the idea of a temporary art program itself can generate funding, because if somebody displays art and they sell it, there might be a certain percentage that the town would take. So there's a lot of different things could happen with a funding strategy. So just talking about so we've got funding constraints, and then for staff resources, last fiscal year, so ending June 30th, we spent about just over 400 hours of engineering staff time. That's primarily my time and Nola Mitchell's time working on the pact and the various things related to public art. But that actually doesn't include some of the additional engineering time, like our public works director. Dan works on some things. We've got a GIS analyst that does a lot of the mapping. And our engineering technicians sometimes do some research for us. And then, of course, there's Sarah Ring is our town clerk liaison. She attends all the meetings, takes minutes, and sets up our ribbon cuttings and posts the agenda. So, and then facilities staff, they're not always called upon, or won't always be called upon. But the Brockway Road project itself, they were out there helping to install the hardware that allowed those panels to get installed, and then actually were out there for a few days installing the panels. So it was probably over 100 hours total that they spent on that art installation. So, just want to sort of acknowledge the amount of time that is spent on these things, and it obviously is going to take away from some of our other priorities. So, in terms of PACT resources, I've already sort of mentioned. So this is a volunteer commission. They meet once per month, but as I mentioned, they do a lot of work outside the commission, so it takes time for them to move these projects forward. As I mentioned, they do some of the, like they worked on the public art inventory and did a grant application, and they drafted the gifting and donation policy. One thing that's identified in the work plan in the staff report is maybe there's a potential for more training for the commissioners in the future, which might actually increase capacity. So that's just something I want to kind of point out when we're talking about the resources of the PAC themselves. So sort of back to the questions that I tried to queue up at the beginning of the presentation, some of the things that we're looking for direction on from the council is where should the focus be? Do you want to see us focus on really putting art on the ground, the art installations? Do you want to it's not that you have to choose one of these things, but I think it's really important for us to sort of know, 1, 2, 3, where the priorities are, so that, we'll focus on the number one priority, and then we'll fill in the gaps with some of these other priorities as we move forward. And then also just want some feedback on if we should be maintaining, if the current level of staff resources we're being putting towards this is appropriate. So in terms of, the PACT has expressed a lot of interest in sort of looking at what our funding strategies are and looking at a long-term funding source for art. So a potential path forward is sort of just focus on that for a period of time. It's if that is the direction we want to go, I think we have to spend a little time figuring out if that is town staff that's doing that, or if we want to hire a consultant to do it. I think there's consultants out there that do it, but we'll just have to sort of figure out where that would fit with our workload, and if we can find a consultant that would do it, work on the funding strategy. And then in this one, we would maybe place a hold on kicking off a future art installation until at least we sort of have that process going, and maybe just focus on something. The in between might be focusing on continued promotion and outreach, or an alternative path would be, no, let's focus on another art installation, and for now, let's just continue to fund art installations on a case-by-case basis, and we'll sort of set that funding strategy discussion aside. Back when the Art Master Plan was adopted in 2019, I think the funding strategy was something that was talked about as being something that was maybe on the higher priority, but that's been a while since that was adopted. So just would like some feedback on that. And then there was a sort of a little extra addition to this whole discussion. There was this art donation and gifting policy. It was actually kind of developed by the PACT and finished up in 2021, but we never presented it to you all to kind of get feedback. So we were hoping to get councils, if there is any feedback, what the point of sort of having this on the shelf and sort of initially approved is that if we do have somebody come forward with the potential for art donation or a monetary gift towards art, then we have a structure set up that will allow us to at least get it going. But of course, we could, if that does happen, we can come back to council with a little bit more detail. So what that art donation and gifting policy says is it talks about we'll evaluate gifted artwork in terms of aesthetics, the location and the context of the site, cost, feasibility, maintenance. That monetary donations could be a general donation or would be considered for a specific project. And then it also outlines an application process. So our staff recommendation today is to just accept the policy, provide comments as needed. And then on to the recommendation. So our recommendation tonight is for the council to review and provide direction on the 2023 Public Art Commission of Truckee's annual work plan and the art donation and gifting policy. And then, of course, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Becky. Just a follow-up comment. When Becky worked with the Art Commission on developing the work plan, and then we were talking about it in advance of the staff report, I was looking at it and saying, gee, this looks like about a full FTE per year plus an additional $500,000 that's not in the budget to implement this work plan. So that's where we wanted to point that out and really ask you as the council to think about kind of in broad strokes, is spending the $180,000 that's in the budget on additional art installations the thing we should be most focused on, or is trying to figure out a longer term funding stream for art that would be going into the future the thing we should be most focused on, or the third thing, just providing more information as to what art is out there and kind of promoting that. Is that the primary focus? Because we're not going to be able to do everything in the current plan with the current resources that are available. I think the Art Commission and some of the members are here are probably aware of that, and I think that helps direct both staff's efforts and the Art Commission's efforts as we move forward on this.
Thank you. Thanks, Dan, and thanks, Becky. All right, with that, we'll start with questions. Vice Mayor Pallavi, any questions?
Questions. I'm going to make a quick comment, and hopefully both Troy and Kelly, you'll make a public comment as well and provide a little color commentary. I think when I first read through the plan, I was like, wow, you guys have been really busy. And that is one comprehensive document, and it's really well done. So thank you so much for the time and effort that went into that. And personally, I'd like to hear that color commentary in your public comment as to where you see the priorities and what you'd like to see us take action on here in the long term. Just a couple of, I do have some questions. Is there currently, I didn't see it in any of the VMT documents that we have out there, but would there be considered by staff any nexus between VMT reduction, some of the fee issues we've been talking about that would relate back to public art, as in those projects that are exceeding their VMT limits? One of the alternative equivalents in our little document there doesn't pertain to public art. So wondering if that is some type of reasonable mitigation, either that could be added to our VMT mitigation list, or even a nexus could be created at some point down the future really creatively. I know.
It is possible to have an exaction for public art. That can be done.
And it can be done through the VMT process or through any other development process that we move forward with to some extent.
VMTs, let's talk about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. I guess my other question is, when we are talking funding strategy in our roles up here generally tends to mean a tax of some sort. Is that the funding strategy that you are all referring to, or is there another funding strategy that you have in mind other than general plan designations or council designations through the normal budgeting process? Is there a third funding strategy that I'm missing?
I think what we've sort of evaluated to date is more of a designation or leveraging private development and in terms of getting more public art are the two primary, and maybe these, like I said, the temporary art program, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so I think broad strokes could be public funding or looking at opportunities for private funding where you can leverage that. I think would be the two broad categories, and then you can get refined from there.
Totally. And in that matrix that you had on the screen, Becky, that wasn't in our staff report, right? Was that in our, I'm just making sure because I didn't think I saw it. The big matrix that we couldn't read with all the projects and things like that.
That should have been attached to the actual work plan.
Oh, okay. It might have been in there. I might have skipped that page. But my question really is, what percentage of those projects are on public property or, for example, in town right-of-ways or part of the West River Park versus something on like a TTL mural, which would be a private project, basically?
These tables, opportunity sites really focus on public property,
So
either right away or the town-owned property.
They were. Great.
There might be a couple that maybe are Caltrans right away, although I'm not sure, but it's mostly public property.
Mostly stuff we control is what I'm getting at from a priority perspective, seeing yeses. And then lastly, when you went to your dollar slide, I think it was like 2 slides back from this one. Keep going. That one? Yeah, that one. So assuming all projects are successfully implemented, so that is all projects on that document that we couldn't read, that so basically implementing all of that from start to finish is really only $500,000?
No, it is.
That seemed really like a great
list.
deal. I'm like, let's do that.
It is a short list, and it's let me see if I can find that.
Yeah.
So this is the short list.
Nice
Still
one.
not that short, but
Cool.
this is the one. This is a list of the projects that were identified in the plan as either being this year or 24, 25, or it says 25, 26 and beyond. But what that meant was like shortly thereafter, essentially.
Got it. And these are a combination of soft and hard costs, a combination of planning, staff time.
And they're very high level. I mean,
yeah. Cool. I'm just trying to get an idea. And this is minus. So basically, we are in the black for this year, but heading into 24, 25 is when we go red, even though your colors don't match.
Oh, yeah. Sorry about that.
That's okay. And right now, with our allocations, we have enough to at least move forward to 24, 25 with some smaller numbers. Okay.
There's essentially roughly 180,000 that hasn't been allocated, right?
So that really depends on what your priority is for projects, right? Like the transit center has about 150,000, so then you don't have a lot left if that's what you choose to prioritize.
Yeah, definitely. And West River Park had like 100. And just a weird question, but I don't see other like CIP projects, either new roundabouts. Has there been a formal change of strategy, like no more art in roundabouts, we're just going to landscape them? What's the strategy there? Or I guess why aren't we seeing any of that stuff either on this list or popping up in any of the roundabouts lately?
They're on the longer list as a potential site, and they do make a good, I think there's definitely opportunity there. I just don't think it was one that got kind of elevated through our discussions.
Because I believe we talked about in years past, or maybe when we first created this, of doing like a 10% of a CIP or 5% of some of those bigger CIPs and adding that on for an art line item of some sort. That was a conversation at some point.
Yeah, and that's a policy option that could kind of fall into that funding bucket on the public side.
Right.
Do you want to establish a benchmark on CIP projects where either a certain amount of money gets spent on that project,
right,
which includes art, or there's a certain amount of money that gets kicked into the art fund, if you will, to just kind of guide the level of public investment you want to see that you're in control of.
Great. I think that is all. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Klofstad.
My only real question is, how do you define sidewalk art?
So that was something that came up as I think there's two concepts that were discussed. One is sort of like an inlay in the sidewalk where something like you see it on the rail yard. Actually, there might have been a few concepts. Another one that we had talked about was the idea of actually printing words. I don't know, what it would be, poetry or some sort of written words on the sidewalk was another idea that was discussed. So maybe one of our commissioners could even comment on that more in terms of what they're thinking. But I think it was just an idea that is a canvas that provides an opportunity, and we should try to look into it more.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Henderson.
Thank you so much. Troy and Kelly, thank you so much for being here. It's so nice to see you both. I guess it's not so much of a question, but maybe if you have the opportunity to address it, of course, we're asking you to address a lot of things now. But just, when we think about where should the focus be, I think to me, funding strategies are of the utmost importance, because without the funding, we don't really create the opportunities to continue these types of investments in public art, which I think are so important. But if you could just add any commentary on, yes, it's funding and we just want to get as many new installations done in this community, or is it not installations? Is it programs for, I know you have youth art projects with schools and things like that. So it's very difficult for me to weigh into where should the focus be outside of funding to be able to do this type of work, because I'm not in the weeds the way that you are. So I'd just love to hear that if possible.
Councilmember Zabriskie.
So Becky, right now my sentiment aligns with what we've heard from all the other council members. And following up on Anna, I was curious about sidewalk art. And can you tell me what streetscape art is?
I think those were meant to be sort of one and the same. Unless is that on this table? Because I'm thinking that the same, one and the same.
I saw it in the work plan.
Okay, I'll look and make sure that, because the other thing is it could mean future streetscape projects making sure that you set aside space for smaller art pieces, sort of like with the bike rack art that we had done through downtown. So that could be what it's referring to. I'd probably just look at it in context. I'll try to do that.
Okay, what do we call the Brockway, the new Brockway piece on the wall? The wall art. Is that wall art?
The name of the art is the path, right? But yes, I guess that's the wall art.
Okay, thank you. Was the work plan prepared in the context of the new general plan? I mean, is it consistent with the general plan? Does it reflect the general plan?
I think the work plan is very much sort of a, like I said, sort of a living document, and it's sort of high level. So there are policies in the general plan that are actually, some of them are very similar to the ones that are in the public art master plan. So to the extent that there's crossover between those two, a lot of the general plan actually has policies that were originally started from the public art master plan and then modified with the general plan update. So to that extent, I would say yes. But if as projects develop and you really start getting further into them, we'd have to do more analysis to make sure that they're completely in line with the general plan.
Okay. I was reminded in one of the staff responses that the council members are elected to make policy determinations like the ones having to do with what other destinations might illustrate where Truckee wants to go. I appreciate all that, but is staff aware, or do you think any of the Art Commission members might have another location in mind that would illustrate for me what we're trying to accomplish?
Yeah, so that was my response.
Thank you, Dan.
Yeah. You wanted to know where it came from. And I think it depends. So if we want to be a world-class art destination versus a world-class ski destination versus a world-class mountain biking destination, the answer could be different on what is the world-class communities we want to benchmark ourselves to.
So, do we want to be like Carmel? I remember seeing the word Carmel in an art.
That's a policy question.
I think that's up to us.
Okay. Those are all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Zabriskie. Maybe kind of a bigger question, and maybe if, the Public Art Council members want to speak to it at all. How does this work with some of our art nonprofits in our community, like youth programming? I know Fox Cultural Hall, formerly Arts for the Schools, does programming in the schools. Some of the other arts groups maybe do some projects or things. So just curious how this all works with some of our nonprofits.
So there are a lot of different art organizations throughout the town. There's the Truckee Art Alliance. There's, like you said, there's the Arts for Schools. So, I think one of the benefits of having the Art Commission and the members that we have, they're all heavily involved and super passionate and dedicated to art. And so they are kind of familiar with a lot of the programs that already exist. So I think I'm sort of relying on, we're just trying, there's not, I think as things progress and as we develop programs, we're just going to need to, we're always sort of thinking about like what's already been done and what can we do that's new.
Thank you. No further questions. So with that, we will open it up to public comment. I hope we have at least 2 people who would like to make public comment. And if so, feel free to come on up, state your name, and you will have 3 minutes. Yeah.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name's Troy Corliss. I'm the current chair of the Public Art Commission at Truckee. I'm absolutely thrilled to hear all the questions that you guys have, and these are things that we have looked at and talked about and spent a lot of time with. So if there's anything that we can't, address, questions that you have tonight, please feel free to reach out to one of us and we can talk outside of the meeting. Becky did a really great job of outlining a lot of the details in the work plan, including the gifting policy. I wanted to just kind of back up and give sort of a higher level of what we've been up to in the last couple of years. I'm absolutely thrilled that we're coming to you with our first work plan after having completed our first large-scale public art project. I think that's pretty cool. It's worth always noting that the Truckee Cultural District was also a collaboration between the town and Rec and Parks and Nevada County Arts Council. And creating the Public Art Master Plan was one of the 3 goals that was the inception within the first sort of direction that was given through the Cultural District. And so as PACT and part of the commission, we do see that we're in partnership with the Cultural District, and those 2 entities are intertwined within the 2040 General Plan. So, we see that as a collaborative resource. In terms of thinking about, high-level direction, it is definitely worth saying that the vast majority of public art agencies around the United States do develop a funding strategy before creating a public art plan. And then subsequent commission. Truckee went about it in a different sort of way. It evolved, and I think it was a very deliberate decision at the time by the council to say, well, we've got some art projects going, and we want to really evolve our program, and so let's just get the ball rolling with the public art master plan and get a commission in place. So that funding strategy and creating a sustainable effort is something that really does need addressing. But I do want to really commend you and thank you for the support that you've given us to date. A big part of that support is the staff that you've given us. It's Cracker Jack staff, starting with Hillary and Becky and Sarah and Nola. They've been fantastic to work with. If you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer those, but it looks like my time's about up.
Thank you very much, Troy. And we'll do all public comment, but I would say don't go far in case there are any additional questions from council members.
I would also like to ask if it's obviously at your purview, but if Troy or any of the Public Art Commission members specifically have an extra couple of minutes, if they did want to add anything, I'd be open to allowing that extra public comment for specifically the two of them. It's up to you, if they have it.
Yeah, go ahead, Kelly. I would like to, we'll keep it to 3 minutes, but then I'll open it up to additional questions for Troy or Kelly.
Good evening, members of Town Council. My name is Kelly Cutler, and I'm here tonight as a Truckee Public Art Commissioner, as well as a newly appointed Truckee Cultural District Program Manager. I'm going to jump to the meat of the conversation. I want to thank Troy for setting the framework and some of the history of passing the Public Art Master Plan, and just answering questions so I don't run out of time. To answer Councilmember Pallavi's question, any advice on what to prioritize, it's like asking to pick your favorite child. Prioritize all of it. It's all important, and I'll talk a little bit about why. I agree with Councilmember Henderson. Number one priority, funding strategy is absolutely needed. We're not reinventing the wheel here. Other towns have used those recommendations, those funding strategy recommendations. So let's look at what's going to work here in Truckee. And I commend Dan for recognizing the robust scope of the work plan exceeding current staff resources. Staff has done an amazing job. It really, in looking at this work plan, it's hard to believe in what's been accomplished, that there is another job description at the other end of this. So just to go back to the top, thanks to the town of Truckee for adopting its public art master plan in 2019 and for its vision to include public art as a way to enrich our community experience. I've only served on PAC since July, and I also am so hugely impressed with the recent accomplishments, including the installation and ribbon cutting of the Brockway Road Wall art project. I saw a lot of you there for the ribbon cutting. It's a phenomenal project, world-class artists that we have here in our community, just 10 minutes from where that wall mural was installed. And then super excited about PAC's involvement with the Donner Lake recycled sculpture project known as Jumping Fish, which is going to be completed in October. I have to say that I've never been more honored to be a part of a commission or a committee that's achieving such great things in such a short, what seems like such a short period of time. Truckee has been designated as a cultural district by the California Arts Council due to the diversity of historical, artistic, and cultural assets. There are only 14 designated cultural districts in the state of California, and Truckee is one of them. This speaks volumes to the cultural character of our town, which is largely defined by the public art inventory, which was established as part of the public art master plan. I'm going to quote Eliza Tudor, who's the executive director of the Nevada County Arts Council, my new boss. She's across the pond and couldn't be here tonight. We know that where culture thrives, so do people. The social and economic impacts of the arts are manifold, but need baseline public funding to support sustainable community outcomes and growth. The role of the Truckee Cultural District partners, including, and
thank you very much.
Hopefully there's more time.
Yes, don't go far. We will see if there's any other public comments. Seeing none. All right, Kelly and Troy, don't go anywhere, because I do feel like there may be some more questions. I'm going to just start out, maybe if one or both of you, Troy, you kind of touched on it, expand a little bit on working with the nonprofits and ensuring, how, if we had a sustainable funding source, how that would improve on overall community while not, double dipping or doing anything like that. If you could maybe speak to that, or Kelly as well in your new role. And then we'll open it up to further questions.
So thinking about the way of crafting a framework for sustainable funding, what we would do and what we did in approaching some of the goals and actions within the Public Art Master Plan was to look to other agencies within the United States. And so there are literally hundreds of large, small, old, and new municipal public art agencies. And so this is our resource. It's really a living database that we can look to. So anything that we can come up with or think about that might be good in terms of programming for Truckee has been done somewhere else many times over. Using that as source material, and then crafting what might be specifically appropriate for our town and the opportunities that Truckee might face in terms of being able to develop a program. There's some specific towns we can look to. So, for example, Park City, Utah, Jackson Hole, Wyoming, Boise, Idaho. These are all places that have municipal public art ordinances and public art programs that are really thriving. They're also resort towns that are, really well known, and they have a lot of similarities to Truckee. 2010, I worked with the City of Bend and Deschutes Public Library, and I'm actually working with them right now. And so there's another example of a ski town, essentially, that has evolved into a cultural destination. And so really in terms of piecing together a funding strategy for Truckee, we envision that it's probably going to look like an amalgam of a number of different sources. So one of the reasons that we started with the gifting policy was because this was how many of the projects that the town currently has came into being. They were gifts and donations. Public-private partnerships are also ways that we can develop, some revenue. So people have come into town saying, we really want to see public art in Truckee, and we've got some money we want to put towards that. But there's no mechanism for them to be able to do that just yet. So, we can create a way for them to be able to do that. And then certainly CIP projects are also a really good source. So a percent of construction dollars that would go from the project into artwork that's woven into the fabric of the project design.
All right. Additional questions, Vice Mayor Pallavi, for our PACT members? If not, that's okay. Yeah. Councilmember Klofstad? Councilmember Henderson, I see you nodding your head. All right.
I have three. So the first one is, I guess, let's assume we can crack the funding nut, because I think we all want to see that happen. The recent artwork installation is just incredible. What are your short and midterm priorities, assuming we crack funding? Is it more art installations? Is it more programming? Like, what is that for you next 12, 24, 36 months?
I'm a working artist and a sculptor, so I always want to see more artwork. I think we've had sort of tandem goals within the commission that we've been working on. So thinking about what's a repeatable framework that the town can use in different types of projects to be able to commission artwork. So we're always going to look to the short term and figure out what are the low-hanging fruit in terms of opportunities that we can be working on projects and making those happen on an ongoing basis. The roundabouts, you would probably assume I'm going to be a big fan of the roundabouts, and I still think that those are a real high target location for artwork. We don't see that there's necessarily time urgency with placing artwork in the roundabouts at this point. And we also see, because of their high visibility, we would like to really sort of honor that location for when the right project comes up and we have the right budget for it. So there are a number of other opportunities that we think that maybe would be a little bit more timely. One thing that the town hasn't done yet is to bring an artist in to participate within the design team of a new project. So have an art-informed design element that where the artist is working with the architectural design team to weave the art design into the fabric of the general building design or architectural design. And there's a lot of cost savings that can happen with that type of project. Becky mentioned temporary or rotating art projects, so artwork that isn't necessarily permanent but might be up for 6 months, a year, or 2 years. There's a lot of cost savings that can come in creating those opportunities. So it's a little bit of both. It's thinking long term, but also really trying to hit some of the immediate opportunities while they exist.
Thank you. That's great. Don't go away. What youth engagement opportunities do we have related to this? Because I know I saw working with schools potentially, and I'm just thinking, art's an outlet, it's creativity, it's healing, it's building things, including, community around that. And quite frankly, that's, probably a pretty good outlet for youth in our community, and for youth who also maybe aren't, maybe they're not the big skiers in the winter and they need other things. Is there opportunity to integrate any of that here?
One of the greatest examples that I personally know of in our community of a youth art project is the mural project that was installed at the downtown park. That was in partnership with Arts for the Schools. They already had an established mural program, and there were 3 muralists working with high school students. The concept within the constraints of the historical commission were established, and the mural was executed within a 2-week period of time. End result was really unbelievable. And I think that it's just a great example of the importance of getting our youth involved with some of these public art projects, and also a demonstration of how we have as partners arts nonprofit organizations that we can tap into for their resources. And just to speak really quickly about the funding recommendations, I think whenever you're looking at a funding strategy, you really want to diversify that portfolio where you're considering long-term funding that's continuous, as well as grant funding. When I was running a state grants program for Nevada, we funded the Public Art Master Plan for the city of Reno, and opportunities like that may be out there. So large grants as well as continuous funding streams. And the temporary art program, I think, is also a great idea.
And my last question, Kelly, is for you. If you still have your notes, what were you going to say when the timer went off?
I wanted to mention that the Truckee Cultural District partners include the Town of Truckee, Truckee Chamber, Truckee Downtown Merchants Association, and the Truckee Arts Alliance. And that we embrace a multi-sector approach to, and this was pulled from the grant that was renewed for the Truckee Cultural District designation in April, to promote, elevate, and amplify the creative sector to showcase the arts as a cornerstone of community development.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor Pallavi, did you have a question?
I had 2 more questions. Sorry.
That's okay.
Kelly, one's for you. I don't know where you and I spoke about it, but you mentioned sometime in the past month that we did talk that there was going to be some potential state funding coming down to the cultural district. Can you explain a little bit more what you foresee happening with the cultural district, and generally what kind of things the cultural district is going to do and fund as it relates to some of this stuff?
So, great question. And I've been in my role for, I think, 3 weeks now. I have had a chance to look at the budget, and as I mentioned, the redesignation was determined in April, and we have had an opportunity to meet with Jen and talk about the role of the town with the cultural district moving forward, as well as some of the other leaders in our community. Developing a cultural plan is something that's part of that budget. So there is actually money to hire a contractor to move forward with a cultural plan. Definitely in talking, we also met with Becky to talk about the cultural asset map and what some of the opportunities are jointly to improve and make sure that that's up to date. And a lot of the budget is focused around promoting the historical and cultural assets that we currently have, providing opportunities for our existing artists. And, I absolutely think that there's opportunity to contribute to this specifically, but give me a little more time to create that leverage.
No problem. We will wait for money as long as we have to, as long as it comes in. Okay. And then my last question, going back to sort of the roundabout conversation, because for whatever reason, I'm fairly focused on funding a lot of this through some of our CIPs and other projects that we kind of have coming up. So maybe because we have the two resident experts and Mr. Wilkins and Mr. Corliss in the room, how I know the ants were donated. So that was a donated. They were placed and then absorbed. However they became part of that. But I know the flowers weren't. The flowers were part of the actual project, right? So can you just walk us through how we got the two pieces of art in the two roundabouts that we do have and just how that happened?
Sure. I would describe that as our art by opportunity phase here at the town.
Good.
So with the roundabout at the rec center, when that project was under construction, we were approached by Troy with a proposal to donate the sculptures if we were willing to place them there and then fund the structural foundation work for that. So in that one, and then we paid to have them powder coated. So I think basically Troy coordinated with some of his counterparts, I think Mountain Forge, to craft the sculptures. I think one of them may have been a residual from another project Troy worked on, and then the other two were, I think, custom created for us. And that's how that came together. So we paid, Troy organized having them made. We paid to have them powder coated. We paid about $20,000 or $15,000 to put in foundations for them. Our public works staff did the actual bolting of the flowers, to the foundations, and then each of the petals is actually bolted. So that's how that all happened. And Troy can correct me on any details I may have gotten wrong. The ants, that was a local welder, sculptor. His story, that roundabout was poorly landscaped. It looked like an anthill to his wife. His wife challenged him to build her an ant for the anthill. He did that. Put the ant out there at a point in time when no one was looking, and then people noticed it. Caltrans called me about 2 hours after the ant surfaced and was wondering why we as the town were installing public art in the Caltrans right-of-way without talking to them. So we picked up the ant, moved it over to the courtyard, parked it there for about a year, figured out who the sculptor was who had created the ant, and then did a deal with him to pay him to make 7 more of them. And then we went through the Caltrans process to get state approval for those to be installed in the roundabout, and then we went out and put them back in the roundabout. The 7 new ants, and then the 1 ant who had been temporarily displaced from his roundabout home for a year. That's how that happened.
Poor guy. Thank you. That was really good history. Troy, did you want to add anything, or is that a pretty good summary? You're happy with Dan's summary?
Totally happy with Dan's summary. If I could get $5 every time the flowers in the roundabout were brought up at the Truckee Follies,
Then you'd be a millionaire.
residuals would be a good thing. Yeah, thank you.
We'll hold out for you this year. I hear they're coming back 2024, so we'll make sure you get a ticket. Those are all my questions. Thank you.
Councilmember Zabriskie, any additional questions?
Yes, I was looking at the staff recommendation, and they had as a priority funding sources, exploring other funding sources. Can you give us an idea of what exploration has occurred so far, or who you're thinking about, if that's okay with you? And if you have reservations about revealing that now, that's fine too.
Certainly. So, again, I think looking to the industry, what are other programs using as a way of building their sustainable funding sources? By and large, it is a percentage for art in construction. And I should qualify that by saying that we're largely talking about visual art in the built environment. And with the inception of the Public Art Master Plan, we were very explicit that's a narrow slice that we want to focus on with the Public Art Master Plan. But really, the town should consider a larger art commission that involves other disciplines. So, thinking about in terms of the funding, we can reach out and pull sources that other agencies are doing as examples that could be potential possibilities within the town. And we mentioned a number of those, which would be, CFP projects, donations, public-private collaborations where, say, developers have actually come to us to explore the opportunity of putting artwork in their development, and we're surprised that we didn't already have an ordinance and mechanism for working with them and integrating artwork within their development. So having some policy guidelines for outside developers as a means of being able to bring that resource in and run it through the town. The bike sculpture downtown, that was actually a incentive, private developer incentive through the current development code. That was the motivation for placing that piece. So we could look at some incentive programs for developers to trade something, whatever, for funding artwork or integrating art into the design of their project. So there are a number of really good sources. We do also see that there's some value in bringing in an outside consultant that has worked with other communities to be able to build that picture. So, there is a strong recommendation, I think, from the commission at this point in time in our evolution to bring in an outside consultant.
Have you looked at private donors or businesses, either in the nonprofit world or in the for-profit world, as potential sources of funding?
Well, there are. I mean, we live in an affluent community, and so there have been examples where donors have come forward and said, I've got some money, I want to see it go towards public artwork. Creating a mechanism for them to be able to do that and have it earmarked specifically for public art, that doesn't quite, it's a gray area, so that's something that would need to happen for them to be comfortable offering that donation. That would be working perhaps with the community foundation on some philanthropy opportunities.
Okay. And as I understand it, you're saying even with these, the potential for private donations, there's a need for a stable or recurring source of funding. Is that what
there
I'm hearing?
really is, and I think that the work plan that you have before you is a really good example of what the potential is, and not to say that we're going to try to fund everything in 1 year or in a short period of time, but to be able to look ahead and say, well, we've got some funding and we've got some opportunities, and we want to be able to plan for those.
Okay, thank you.
All right. I don't see any further questions, so thank you very much, Troy and Kelly. Appreciate all the work, all the answers tonight, as well as hearing Becky's presentation. All the work you and your fellow members have dedicated towards this is incredible, and we thank you for all that. All right, with that, discussion and direction from council. So Vice Mayor Pallavi, I will look to you first.
Do we want to frame this up somehow? Anybody got any recommendations? So, I mean, I'll go ahead if you have something to say. Otherwise, I'm happy to start us.
Yeah, Becky, if you, those two, I think it's kind of, and then you had the other slide of one option, alternative option.
I didn't like that one. I like the other one.
You like the other one?
Well, not that I didn't like that one. I shouldn't say that. First and foremost, Troy, Kelly, and please pass on all of our thanks to your fellow commission members. By all means, you guys are doing some super heavy lifting over there, and it's awesome to see. So thank you. I agree, I think, with a lot of what we heard. I do believe a funding strategy is necessary. I am personally sort of okay with, I think Troy said it best, our ad hoc current funding strategy, which is, hey, bring us some really cool stuff and we'll find a way to fund it. That definitely is okay with me as long as I hold this seat up here for the next few years. I think it doesn't solve the long-term problem. And I do think there does need to be a long-term funding strategy at some point. As we were talking, I pulled up Park Cities. 1% of the cost of constructing or renovating public buildings or sites, right? So that kind of goes to what I was suggesting, which we've talked about in the past, finding a way through some of our CIP projects to line item out 1%, 3%. I don't know what that number is, but to me, that's the right direction. I'm not super going to be supportive in this current economic or construction climate of tacking on additional requirements of our development community. I have no problem putting in incentives. I have no problem putting in opportunities for the development community, private development community to earn, whether that's density, whether that's something else, for voluntary art dedications, but I'm not going to be supportive of required art set asides from a private development at this time. Just construction costs are so high. I don't feel the need to add to that. I like the way we've been doing it. I think an annual budget as part of some of our allocations are really important. So, based on what Becky provided us, if it's really only $25,000 to hire a consultant sometime in the next 2 years to develop a funding strategy, that seems really reasonable. I would definitely support something like that, especially in that kind of dollar range. And in the interim, until we are able to put something like this in place, I think the installations are great. I think keeping them a part of whether it's West River Park, whether it's the mobility hub, future CIPs that are going to start to come before us. I didn't see anywhere in there, maybe trailhead art. I mean, we do have a lot of space at certain trailheads to be able to do things like that. And CIPs are going to always be there for me. I'm a big fan of roundabout art. I'd like to see more of it. I applaud you for thinking grandly and waiting for the perfect, biggest, grandest, coolest piece. I'm also not opposed to small incremental change either. So however we get there, I really think that this current group we've got serving on this commission provide some really good feedback and recommendations to us. And I would simply like to encourage our commitment to continue that as best as we can. From a staff resource level, to me, this is definitely a budget conversation. Obviously, I think that's the direction you're looking for. I'm very open to increasing our staff resources. I don't know if I'm ready for a full FTE to go towards this, but certainly a half, or depending on how we start to see public works structure with some of the new trail projects that you want to accomplish, and sort of maintaining everything that we are doing, adding on some of the new trail projects. Maybe this is part of that, and maybe we split a trail project and a an art support person, and that's a new position potentially in the budget coming forward. And lastly, I'm also not opposed, and I know we haven't left the gate quite yet, but the ballot measure stuff is coming back to us at some point in the next month, I'm assuming. And, you know, it might make sense to have some language that allows us to utilize, if it is transportation or transit related, and there is art as a part of that. So I'm specifically thinking about the transit hub or other, my God, I can't remember the term, the pickup and drop off locations. Why can I never remember this term?
Curbside management.
Curbside management, some sidewalk. Gosh, that term eludes me. Some curbside management are, you know, as we're starting to develop our transportation ballot initiative, maybe either explicitly including opportunities that are directly related to our transit work, including it in that. So to me, those would be some opportunities, both in the short term and maybe low-hanging fruit that we can pursue.
Vice Mayor, I'm just going to jump in, and you get to have that conversation all over again on October 10th. That's when we're coming back.
For the ballot language. Yes. Correct. Yeah. So just sort of seeding that at the moment as it relates to that, because Transit Center would seem to be a nice fit for something like that, and that's where that money might be able to come from.
Thank you. And then one other thing Becky had asked about was the donation gifting policy that was put together. Okay, support. Great. Thank you. Appreciate those comments.
Yeah, no problem. I would personally, and going back to just C, and I would put C, promotion and outreach. I would put that as my sort of lowest priority. I would say all art installations and funding strategies would be my top two. Promotion and outreach and new ongoing would be my bottom two, without ranking them further.
Thank you. Councilmember Klofstad.
Okay. Support the donation and gift policy. Absolutely. I thank you guys very much for crafting that and bringing that forward. And I really want to thank the PACT members for their service. It's being said over and over again, but it really is impressive what you have done. And I want to let you know you've really gained my trust and respect in the work that you've accomplished here. And so I want to turn that over to you and allow you to do more of that in your focus and areas and strategic planning. So great job. Keep moving forward with that. I agree with the basic prioritization that Councilmember or Vice Mayor Pallavi just said, art installations and funding strategies being the top two, and then B and C below that. I really would love to have art installations ready to go for those couple of projects that you have identified, you know, the new West River Park and the transit station and a few other of those really key ones. So if we could keep that moving forward, I would be very supportive of that. In terms of how to accomplish the funding strategies, I am wide open to suggestions. I think given that we have so many pieces of this puzzle, we have development going on, we have an affluent community, we have creative staff, we have commitment from our community to do this. I think it probably would benefit us to work with some sort of specialist that could put all those pieces together. So I would support that as well if that is the direction that the PAC wants to take. I am a little bit more concerned about the staff resources level for this next year, because it's all our work program is already developed. So that's my only kind of hang up with everything that you said, which I mostly agree with. And so but I trust our staff to develop a plan to approach that. I want us to not impede the PAC's progress and ability to accomplish this master plan. That's my goal, but without having to compromise some of our work program, which we fought heavily over. And I think it's really important that we do have at least a little bit of general fund money every year dedicated to this and that staff time, because it's important for us to be a participant in that and have some skin in the game. So I want to continue that going forward. It's a little bit of an ad hoc approach, but I would like to formalize that a little bit, that we just have a consistent funding general fund line item that we roll over and maybe we add to when we can. So those are my approaches to where I'd like to see this go.
And just to make sure that I heard you correctly, so have a general fund line item rollover potential and also do consultant work to look to someone to look at a broader funding strategy as well with all of our.
Yeah, because
Okay.
I don't think it is either reasonable or a good idea to depend to have this funding strategy depend on any one of these possible sources when we have so many available. We have our own general fund, we have possibly developer incentives, we have community gifts, and we have grants and opportunities. So we should be leveraging all of those, and I think a consultant would do that more effectively.
Thank you. Councilmember Henderson.
Thank you so much. I absolutely support the art donation and gifting policy. I feel like I'm hearing that the focus needs to be first and foremost funding, and I do like discussing that in tandem with our budget process. I think having a consultant, or whether it's staff or whatever direction we decide to go there, would be really, really useful, because I feel like there's a lot of questions that I certainly have to make an actual informed decision about funding strategies. You know, what have similar communities used for their funding strategies? How effective have those been? What return do we actually get in public art installations and other art endeavors from those funding mechanisms? What might the pros and cons be? How do we really marry these public and private resources together to support our public art? So I do think that that's something that we should probably move forward on, so we can really understand what this funding mechanism looks like, particularly over the long term. And I think in the shorter term, I would support your recommendation for having, you know, sort of an ongoing, you know, designation of some amount within the general fund, particularly for that short to midterm. I also wanted to say I had no idea there were only 14 designated sites like this in the entire state, and that we're one of them. I mean, that speaks volumes. That is amazing. And I think there are probably so many people who don't know that in our community. That's, you know, I know art installations and funding, but when I think about outreach and promotion, and that's incredible. So I just wanted to say that. And then one thing, not exactly part of the conversation, but because the GIS map was linked in the staff report, which I thought was great. You can go in, see the map. The only thing I wanted to sort of say is that not all of the art descriptions have corresponding images in the GIS map. So if we can add those for the benefit of the public, I think that would be really, really great. What have I missed?
I think you got it all. You definitely heard funding strategy is a priority for you. What about continuing with art installations? Is funding strategy utmost priority first, or kind of ad hoc, still kind of do what we can to continue to do art installations until we have that strategy?
I mean, I don't want us to stop moving forward on art installations. We still have some budget in this, so I wouldn't say stop so that we can just focus on funding strategy. I wouldn't recommend that personally. I want to see us keep going on the fishes and all of the other great things ahead.
And then staffing levels, did you speak to your thoughts on maintaining current? I think I heard discussion of future potential additional staff time.
Yeah, I mean, I think honestly, it really depends. If all of a sudden we can come up with some really secure funding sources and the public art program can grow exponentially, that kind of a staff resource is going to look different than if we say, all right, we're going to kind of keep at this level for the next couple of years. So to me, that's a little bit of a, it depends and really what we're trying to accomplish over the next few years, matching the staff resources to what we're really trying to get done.
And funding. Yep. Okay. Council Member Zabriskie.
Can we pull up staff's recommendation again? I believe that was one of the slides.
Yeah, are you talking about the options?
Yeah. Right, thank you. What's important for me, and it's not entirely clear that we have it, is consistency with the general plan. When I look at the general plan, I see a focus on, not a focus, but asking that we emphasize local artists and art education. I share the opinion that Councilmember Henderson expressed earlier about the importance of art education for our youth. I also see art as a community unifier. The ant hill, I think those ants are a unifier for the northern neighborhoods of Truckee. I think Prosser people, Upper Alder, Gray's Crossing, Hennis Flats, Frischman Hollow. I think all those people include a large segment that claim those ants as their own. And there have been many occasions when I've come down the road early in the morning and seen the ants newly adorned with some new accoutrements that, sometimes can last a couple of days before someone comes out and takes them down. So I think it has a really strong positive influence on our community, both for our youth and unifying our community overall. In terms of where we want to put the emphasis, staff has said that it's their opinion that the work plan is not possible to implement due to both funding and staff resource constraints. And they ask us to provide guidance on essentially narrowing it by prioritizing certain things. I would prioritize the funding strategy in terms of putting more money into arts. I think that does have to wait for our next budget cycle. And in terms of devoting more staff, that requires us to wait until we renew our work plan. I don't think now's the time to try and do that. So basically, I'm in alignment with what staff originally recommended. The Vice Mayor Pallavi mentioned not wanting to burden real estate development. I agree in terms of housing development because of the housing crisis. I don't want to burden housing development. I don't feel the same way about commercial development. I'm open to an imposition of some level of funding from commercial developments, though I don't know what kind. And the idea of a baseline, I definitely subscribe to that. I can't remember if it was Kelly or Troy who mentioned the need for a baseline. I think the town has a role to play in providing essentially a steady safety net of funding. But I see it as a community effort. The entire community benefits. I don't think it's entirely a civic obligation of the town so much as a joining of the community, a community recognition of importance of art.
And do you support the gifting and donation
Yes.
policy? Okay. So Becky, you're finished, Councilmember Zabriskie? Yes. Okay. Sorry. I think I heard you mention, based on direction tonight, at our next quarterly discussion of our work plan, you would come back with a discussion of potential funding strategy, consultant, or something like that. I just want to make sure I heard you correctly.
Yeah, I think our proposal is sort of this direction, knowing what we're going to be working on next, just making sure that we're evaluating that. We'll be adding a task for the funding strategy. We're constantly working with the Art Commission, but we will be more specific. I mean, some will drop off, like the Brockway Road wall art is now complete. So.
Okay.
Maybe I can just piggyback off that a little bit. So I think what the plan will be is to go back to the Art Commission. We can have our commission members here help share the feedback we heard, kind of massage their work plan a little bit, and then incorporate the final draft of that into the work plan for your next discussion. And that will, I think what we're hearing is some interest in the funding strategy, but maybe some temporary stopgaps. There's maybe not everybody agrees to that, but want to continue funding some projects until that's developed. So that'll be something that Becky and team can discuss with the Art Commission, what the priority is to fund and what that looks like for your November-ish discussion of your overall work plan.
Okay, thank you for that. I appreciate all the comments. Super excited about all the work that's being done and the efforts and the art in our community, and having culture and art is so important to make our community whole. We're not just sports, we're not just that, we're everything. So really appreciate that. That said, I do feel like funding, we're talking a lot about funding a lot of things. You mentioned the ballot measure with Councilmember Zabriskie, and I had a little preview today. We've talked about sustainability funding. We hear about library funding, all this other stuff. So I do also want to be conscious of that in all of these discussions, and I think we all are. I didn't hear anyone say anything to that. And so that's kind of my questions around our nonprofits and how we work together, because we do have so many amazing nonprofits and art nonprofits in our community. So ensuring that whatever funding source we look to, and I think Councilmember Zabriskie, you kind of said it, it's not solely the town's responsibility to fund all this, it's the community's responsibility. So having that part of whatever consultant work is done, which I think, again, I heard from everyone. So that way we're looking to everyone and utilizing the talent and resources that some of the other organizations have through grants or donations and all that type of work too. So I'm in support of looking to, understanding more what exploring funding strategies would be, and understanding what that means for our staff capacity in our next work plan as well. So, and support the gifting and donation policy too. So I think that's unanimous up here. So with that, are you guys good with direction?
I think so, but may I make one more kind of side comment?
Of course.
Troy reminded me, as I was talking about all the things that the staff was working on, I forgot to acknowledge all the work that Hillary has done previous to engineering working on this. So she was, that list of things, the accomplishments, she had a big part in that. So I just wanted to mention that. Kudos, Hillary. All right. Well, thank you very much, Becky and Troy and Kelly. We appreciate that. Thank you. All right. We'll take a break now. Let's say 15 minutes, and we'll come back for item 7.3.
program to include higher income levels, in this case up to 245% AMI, to make sure we're preserving the housing stock at a range of income levels and it reflect the current conditions in our for sale market. And the third goal is to expand our deed restriction program to include more for sale product, because the majority of our deed restricted housing is for rent. And then, so it was launched in November of 2022. It provides 16% of the purchase price of a home up to $150,000 in exchange for a deed restriction that ensures the home's residents are full-time, income qualified, locally employed households. The maximum sales price is $937,500, and home buyers, sellers, local businesses, and developers can participate in THAP in various ways. So as a reminder, the THAP requirements: the household can earn no more than 245% of the area median income. As of 2023, that's just over $275,000 for a household of 4. At least one household member has to work full-time within the boundaries of the Truckee-Tahoe Unified School District or have a written offer letter from an employer. The house must be occupied as a full-time residence 10 out of 12 months a year. It must be located within the town of Truckee limits with no open code violations. And as I mentioned, maximum purchase price of $937,500. So THAP is an important housing tool because in Truckee, our housing costs are high and funding assistance is limited. Today, less than 50% of the homes in Truckee are full-time residents, and in the region, that number drops to 36%. So I'm giving a little information on the housing market in Truckee. Currently, the median household income in Truckee is $110,300, and again, that's for that household size of about 2.55, 2.54 from the Mountain Housing Council Needs Assessment. Using the affordability calculation that we use, developed for the Mountain Housing Council, the affordable purchase price for that household income is $418,500, and only 34 homes sold below that price, that median affordable price in the past 12 months. So currently, households must make 293% of our area median income to afford the current median home price of $1,152,500, and that median home price is very point in time, so that fluctuates a lot. And currently, only 29% of homes that have sold so far in 2023 sold below that $937,500 program cap. So you will soon hopefully be getting a more detailed overview from the Mountain Housing Council Needs Assessment, but here's just some basic facts about Truckee specifically. We have 4,259 inadequately housed households in Truckee, and that covers a variety, underhoused, in commuters, people who are living in overcrowded situations. So it's a range of inadequately housed types. So about 51% of those in Truckee are in the 0 to 80% AMI. 80 to 160 AMI is about 36% of that need, and then 160 to 245% AMI is about 13% of that need. During our program development, we anticipated that THAP would mainly serve households in that 160 to 245 category due to Truckee home prices, but we have some exciting news on that I'll get to in a future slide. So the needs assessment also asked some qualitative questions about potential home ownership in the region and barriers to home ownership, and the respondents highlight really the need for THAP and similar programs. Nearly half of the respondents answered they were somewhat or very likely to purchase a home in the next 5 years. This shows us that there is a strong desire for local home ownership among our workforce. To the question, what are the barriers you face towards home ownership? The number one answer was that they cannot find a home at an affordable price, and the second was that they lack a sufficient down payment for closing costs. THAP addresses both of these issues. It provides direct funding that can be used for down payment or closing costs, and an increased down payment can help make expensive homes more affordable for THAP buyers. Additionally, a long-term goal of the program is to create a secondary market of lower price deed restricted homes that are only available for the local workforce. And then there's a couple other examples of top reasons that people felt were a barrier towards home ownership. So here's some data about the THAP for household purchases they've completed since the program's launch in November 2022. So far, all participants have been buyers, individual buyers, but we have received a seller application, an application from a developer, and a local business owner application, and those are all in process. So far, we have closed on 5 houses with one. Oh, actually, I should say, I wrote this earlier today, and we closed on our 6th house as of today. We got the notification that we closed on our 6th house this afternoon. So we have also received 2 more final applications, house number 7 and 8, and if those are approved, those funds will be reserved as well. So you can see the average house price or average sales price for a THAP house is $607,800, and our houses have ranged from $424,000 to $720,000. We've had a range of housing types, including single-family homes, townhouses, and condos, and a range of bedroom sizes as well. So here are some statistics on our THAP buyers. As mentioned earlier, we thought that this would mainly serve households at more towards the top of the range, the 160 to 245. But our average AMI of buyers is 161% of area median income, with a range from 116 to 220% AMI. So 60% of the sales have been in that 160 to 245, while 40% are in that 80 to 160. This doesn't include the house that just closed because I'd already made this presentation. So we have housed 14 individuals, which includes 7 local employees at 6 local employers. The other 7 include children and non-locally employed like partners that are in the household. 4 employees of Truckee Tahoe Workforce Housing Agency members have been housed through the program, and 60% of the purchases have had at least one Truckee Tahoe Workforce Housing Agency member employee. And sorry, the type's a little small, but of our qualifying employee professions, they cover a wide range, including hospitality, retail, education, healthcare, and government. THAP funding and payments. As you know, funding comes from Measure K, the transient occupancy tax measure. Our average payment per unit was $97,600 with a range of $69,900 to $115,200. And you can see our budget for fiscal year 2022-2023. We had $700,000. What we actually spent was $199,200 with $500,800 remaining. And the reason for that is we had several houses, or 2 houses that we expected to close at the end of the fiscal year that did not close until early July. So those closed in this fiscal year. We again had $700,000 in the budget. I'm just going to skip right to the including number 6 because we have spent that money now at this point. We have spent $425,760 and have $274,240 remaining in the budget. And I actually got even more updates right before. We have received applications for house number 7 and 8. And if those are approved, it would be around $226,000 total more payments, so if approved, we could be down to around $48,000 in the next 60 days. So pretty significant jump right there as well. So as far as the average cost per unit, as I said, it was $97,600, which broken down over the 55-year life of the deed restriction is $1,775 per year. And in comparison, the incentive per unit for lease to locals is currently $6,717 per unit for 1 year. And the average cost per bedroom is $40,667, and the cost per bedroom per year is $740. Because of the success of this program, we are proposing an amendment to this budget. We have around $274,240 remaining in the households line item after this house that closed today, and we propose amending the THAP C-2014 budget to increase $500,000 in the THAP purchase households line item, which would be a line item total of $1.2 million, and the total budget would be $1,749,250. We are not asking for an increase in the developer or local business line items at this time, and we would use $500,000 of the Measure K funding from the unspent actuals in fiscal year 22-23, and this would allow for around five more THAP payments in 23-24. Because we do expect the buying season to slow down some, but not go away completely. So, due to the success of THAP in preserving workforce housing through deed restrictions, staff proposes amending the fiscal year 23-24 C-2014 budget with an increase of $500,000 in the line item total of $1.2 million and a budget total of $1,749,250. We propose to use the $500,000 of unspent Measure K funding that has been included in the estimated actuals and was not spent to cover this additional expense. That's the end of my presentation, and I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you very much. That was great to see all that data broken down. It's fascinating and exciting. Councilmember Klivstad, questions?
No questions.
Councilmember Henderson?
Yeah, can you just confirm, so how many people have we housed with the 6, including, I guess, the one that's about to close, or close today?
14 people in 5 houses. I don't remember off the top of my head how many are in the household of the 6 that's closed. I would guess 2 to 4.
I believe it was 4, so I think we're at 18 as of today, with 2 more in the pipeline.
Thank you.
Councilmember Zabriskie?
Yes, Lynn, did you just tell us in your presentation what the average annual cost is on the lease to locals? Did you mention that?
I did.
6,000.
It was $6,717 per unit. They didn't have the per bedroom cost, but they're going to get it for us in the future.
And the THAP is 55 years. The deed restriction is 55 years. Correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
There's no way of kind of reducing the lease to local payments over the 55 years, doing present value of what those payments would be, and then comparing it with how much we spend on the home access program?
Yeah, that's something I can look into. One of the things we are hoping our Civic Spark Annika is able to do is look into how many of the lease to locals participants are continuing to lease after the first year, because right now it's $6,717 for 1 year, but if they continue to lease without an incentive, it will go down. But yeah, we can definitely do some more calculations and adjust over the years.
Yeah, I'm just about the present value of the payments, because if I multiply 55 years times the 6,717 per unit, that's $369,000.
Yeah.
Which makes THAP look like a much better deal.
Oh yes. If we're just going by straight value, THAP has a much longer investment. There are different programs with different aims, but THAP is cheaper per year in the long run.
Yeah, it'd be just nice to have the present value comparison.
Yeah, I can do that.
And I don't have any other questions than that. That's a great presentation. It's very comprehensive.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Pallavi?
I was just going to say thank you for that great slide. Finally. Appreciate that. No further questions.
2 quick questions. So the numbers, you gave per year, that's 55 years, but the deed restriction resets with the sale of the house. So in essence, it could be longer than 55 years and
yes, that's
lower.
in essence, it could be in perpetuity. That's kind of worst case scenario, that it's 55 years, which is still a great option.
Yes. And then have interest rates being so high, obviously it doesn't look like it's affecting this program, which is phenomenal. People are still utilizing it. I was just curious what the feedback on that has been.
So one of the things we've heard from lenders, because we work with kind of the same lenders over and over, is there's more interest in these type of programs. Like we have more lenders who have approved our program documents than other down payment assistance programs, and our program administrators who've been working in these types of programs for decades think it's related to interest rates, that there's more people are more hesitant to buy because interest rates are so high, and so mortgage lenders are more willing to look into these other options to help get people into homes.
Thank you. All right, with that, we will open it up to public comment. Seeing none, we will close public comment and bring it back up for any additional discussion. Councilmember Klövstad?
This is fantastic. I mean, what a success, right? Yeah, I'm in full support of the funding increase. I am very proud of our town for funding our housing needs so robustly. I think we've really stepped up to the plate on that. And I know you guys have heard it before, and I think that we are significantly underfunding one of our other goals, sustainability. But I understand we will be having something brought to us on that for a continual funding source, and I look forward to funding that as robustly.
Thank you. Councilmember Henderson.
Can I add a third recommended action so that you don't go through all four
Sure.
and then have to go back through all four again before we get too far down the road? And maybe we could just go back to Councilmember Klövstad. My third would simply be to add a third action to both of these to basically affirm that if we're reaching budget limits again prior to the next budget adoption, that staff comes back and presents us with a similar type of agenda item rather than letting the clock run out on this program that seems to be successful.
Councilmember Klövstad in support?
Absolutely in support of that. Thank you for that addition.
Thank you. We'll get back to you in a second. Councilmember Henderson.
Yeah, I fully support the budget amendment. I'm really excited about the update. Some of your slides were just great. I loved the visualization. And I mean, this is a pathway to home ownership for people in our community. This is what we've been wanting to create, and it's actually happening. And this is really just the start. So I'm excited to see what we can get with, another $500,000 and support the amendment from Vice Mayor Pallavi as well.
Thank you. Councilmember Zabriskie.
I'm hoping that one public commenter who asked about disabilities, qualifying with disabilities, was notified of the same information I received and the answers to the questions. I hope that provides them.
I will reach out to them.
Okay, thank you. In a way, this program is a success. With $500,000, if we stay at the same average, we get 5 more homes. And we have, 4,259 inadequately housed people. So for about $425 million, we should be able to house them. So yes, the program is a success in one sense, but it's a very expensive success. And so I'm very appreciative that we're working on other programs, that we're pursuing a variety of avenues to house the workforce that lives elsewhere as well as those who are here but inadequately housed. With all of that said, yeah, I fully support staff's recommendation and add $500,000.
And you support the addition of encouraging staff coming back if we're going to be running out of budget before?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
okay.
That's fine.
Vice Mayor Pallavi.
Supportive of all three. Thanks.
Thank you. I am too. Just a few comments. So excited about this program. Fascinating that there were 34 homes sold below 418,000 in the past year. I'm just curious where those are. You don't have to answer that now. It's just Yeah, oh, I'm sure there's a few mobile homes. Yeah, I'm one of those people who looks at Zillow a lot late at night for no reason. I'm not buying a home anytime soon, but I never see homes that are that inexpensive. So
Some of them are, mobile homes and condos, but that also includes some of those condos that are in Tahoe Donner that are lodging units, which bring down the average price. I didn't control for those when I pulled that 34.
Got it. Okay. Just interesting. Also, your slide of 29% tied for the top two employment categories were healthcare and education, which, again, that's one of those, we always say we need to house our teachers and nurses, and it's like, we're doing that. So I just wanted to point that out, that was exciting. And then, well, $150,000 or $116,000 average is a fair bit of money. Councilmember Zabriskie, you said expensive. I would just say that is still far less expensive than building a new unit. And so that is another just data point of, yes, we would need $425 million to do this for everyone, but it's still getting people in a house and ensuring that house is deed restricted for a long period of time. So with that, fully in support, including the addition. So Vice Mayor Pallavi, do you want to make a motion?
I will move. We've accepted the program update. I'll move that we approve the budget amendment C2014 and move that we add an action that should the program start to run low of money, that you come back to us with a similar presentation and request.
And with deep appreciation to the voters for approving Measure K, I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you very much, Lynn. All right, with that, discussion item 7.4, introduction of ordinance update for board and commission appointment process and attendance. Kelly, is this your first presentation? Drum roll, please.
With enthusiasm.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I am here to bring back the discussion of the appointment and attendance of board and commission members and to introduce ordinance 2023-7. At the August 22nd, 2023 council meeting, council provided direction to staff to return with ordinance 2023-07 to address board and commission member attendance, but to continue the historical method of appointing planning commissioners that allows each individual council member to appoint their own planning commissioner. Unless otherwise specified by resolution or ordinance, all other board and commission members would be appointed by a majority vote of the town council. Staff has also made minor revisions to provide further clarity of board and commission members' absences from meetings. The red line changes to the Truckee Municipal Code were provided in tonight's agenda packet. So, short and sweet, our recommended action is introduce ordinance 2023-7, modifying Title II of the Truckee Municipal Code to address the appointment process and attendance for the town's board and commission members. Questions?
Thank you very much. We appreciate that brief presentation.
So just a reminder, you had a chance to really discuss this at a previous meeting. So I did ask Kelly to keep it short, knowing that you've already had this conversation, but she can answer any questions if you want to revisit anything.
Thank you. Councilmember Henderson, any questions?
No, thank you.
Councilmember Zabriskie, any questions?
No.
Over here? Nope. Seeing no questions. I don't have any questions either. We'll open it up to public comment. Seeing none, we will close public comment. Do you mind bringing back the action on the screen? I would say, since we already had a robust discussion on this, if anyone would like to make a motion, I would entertain that, unless somebody really has any other comments. Seeing none? Okay. Who would like to make a motion?
We're all going to, yeah. So I move that we introduce ordinance 2023-07, modifying Title II of the Truckee Municipal Code to address the appointment process and attendance for the town's board and commission members.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Abstention? All right, that passes with 4 votes and 1 abstention. Thank you very much, Kelly.
Thank you.
All right, with that, we will move on to council member reports. Council member Zabriskie.
I attended one of the PUD community circles, and essentially what the PUD is doing is refining its 2021 strategy initiatives, which included broadband, underground utilities, and carbon reduction by another name. They're fine-tuning it, but they are making some changes. One notable is whether to include the entire watershed as within their purview in terms of protecting water quality. Attended Good Morning Truckee, where the school district superintendent, Kirsten Kramer, spoke, giving us an update on the district's strategic plan framework, and Kim Bateman talked about career preparation and four-year college transfers for students. And combined with remarks from Jessica Penman, all three of those, the chamber, the school district, and Sierra College, are all looking at how to help students who don't necessarily want to go to college find careers, and they're looking at local careers. Is there something that can be done to help introduce local school kids into local careers? At the Nevada County Transportation Commission meeting, the commission hired a lobby firm called Politico Group to advocate for them in the state legislature. They're looking at the concept of induced demand, which is being applied in urban areas to reduce state funding for road expansion. Nevada County wants to have the state look differently in rural areas as not creating induced demand by widening roads, and to get more funding with that change. Also, the county, much like the town, is looking at changing the way the state defines low-income people, or AMI, in this case, disadvantaged communities. They want the state to use a different rubric to define disadvantaged communities in the context of rural areas. That is something that maybe Erica Mertens might want to connect with Mike Woodman, the head of NCTC, because these are overlapping concerns. The local agency formation commission had a budget meeting I attended, and this is about the reorganization of 3 of the fire districts on the west side. We agreed to increase funding to do an analysis of how that can be carried out. I attended the wildfire forum with Anna and Lindsay. Yeah. Oh, the mayor. Yeah. The mayor spoke. That's right. And that was mostly about evacuation. That was a question and answer session, very well attended, robust. I thought it went really well, and I enjoyed the questions. Attended the Chiefs Advisory Committee. The topics included how we can help prevent suicides, address school safety, and then wildfire evacuations again. This morning there was a meeting that the mayor and I attended on the transportation polling on renewal of the measure that covers transportation, and that will be coming back to us soon, I believe. I attended the Chamber Awards, the general plan celebration, met with the developer of the Jaboom Street project, and then representatives of the Citizens Climate Lobby, and then also the Truckee River Legacy Foundation, which is addressing its goals and procedures in regard to the River Revitalization Committee. That's it.
Thank you for staying busy. We appreciate that.
Time
Vice Mayor Pallavi.
working hard in retirement over there. Thank you for picking up the slack for the rest of us. I simply attended a Visit Truckee Tahoe board meeting. A couple of just quick highlights. August quite strong. September also staying pretty well in the lodging sector. Very consistent in September as well. Going into the off season, very traditional low October. VTT did just commission a recent economic impact report. I'm sure Colleen will provide some of that data in their annual report to us, I believe, coming in November. But some of very impressive numbers, significant growth from tourism, both in terms of employee generation and total economic impact, now topping $250 million in terms of tourism-related goods. And that does include second homeowners, including day, overnight, and other segments of what we would consider the tourist population. So just some interesting data. I'm sure Colleen will bring it up. And if you have any specific interest, just reach out to her and you can have a copy of it. That's all for me. Thanks.
Councilmember Klopstad.
I watched the Good Morning Truckee and the education segment. I thought that was really great. It also included Mindy Carbajal of Boys and Girls Club, who did an overview of their program, a very robust program. I was surprised to learn that it's something like 500 students served per day through the Boys and Girls Club, and a real variety of programs from STEAM and arts and physical activities and a performance that they put on every year. So really nice to see all of that educational opportunity, all of those educational opportunities between Sierra College and the Boys and Girls Club, and then sandwiched in between the school district. I too met with the developer of the Jaboom Street development and had a good conversation about kind of how to move forward in a collaborative way, hopefully. Chamber Awards were great. It was a lovely evening, and it's just so fun to celebrate our businesses and successes, and especially the new businesses. That's always really inspiring. The Community Wildfire Forum, I attended as well, and I really have to admire the breadth and the depth of knowledge from all the different panelists. It was so impressive, and the obvious collaboration and coordination was very reassuring as a resident, and I could see in the room it was really helping people understand, oh, these things are not happening in silos. All these agencies really are talking and coordinating and collaborating in our best interest. So if you haven't seen it, you can watch it. It's on Truckee Tahoe Media, and grateful for that opportunity to be able to send that link out to multiple residents that weren't able to be there but continue to show concern about our wildfire preparedness and emergency preparedness. Tahoe biomass meeting, mostly we focused again on the cost of the processing of raw material into something that's useful in the units that we're considering, and it continues to be the biggest challenge in making these projects pencil financially, but we have a great group of people working on solving that challenge. And then I watched the T2SD presentation that they did on their sustainability practices of past, present, and possibly future. So that was very informative as well, and I'm really hoping that we can do some more collaboration with our co-agencies, and that they'll join the Climate Transformation Alliance and help us facilitate that and leverage that. I too joined one of the community circles for the Truckee Donner PUD. Thank you for recapping that. I think you did really great. It was really well facilitated, and I was really impressed with the process. It was informative. So yeah, and with that, probably the most fun was the Truckee 2040 General Plan celebration. Just loved that, especially the songs. Oh my gosh, those were fantastic. Those were hilarious.
I second that. Thank you, Councilmember Klopstad. Councilmember Henderson.
Thank you. I had several, just continuing my one-on-one community listening sessions, if you will. So I'm not going to list them all out because there were a bunch, but those have been really productive. Just asking people, what are their questions? What are their concerns right now? What are we doing well? Where do they still want to see things changing? So those have been really informative. Also attended a PUD community circle, the very last of all 7 held at the PUD. I think you recapped it really well. Thank you for that. And I think it was interesting too, at least at my table, just where people wanted to see priorities were, vast. So I'll be really interested in terms of, what the PUD, what directions they go in after this with all of this data that they're collecting. Also attended the Truckee Chamber event last week. It was so great to celebrate so many of our businesses and also to see such a huge showing of people that were able to make it for that. I attended our general plan adoption celebration. Very, very fun. School has started, so our schools had parents' night, so I attended that at Truckee L, which unfortunately meant I couldn't get to our wildfire forum same night. But I heard that it went really well, and I just wanted to sort of make a ping for, one, thanking all of our educators as we've started the school year, but also just to mention that the TTUSD school facilities survey is out, and it's not just for parents who have kids in the district, it's for anyone living within the district, and it doesn't just ask questions about investments in school facilities. It asks things like, how much do you want TTUSD to prioritize, for example, the creation of workforce housing on TTUSD land? So, if you care about those things, make sure you fill out that survey so that you give input to TTUSD. That's it.
Thank you very much. All right. Excuse me. I also attended a TDPUD circle. Great. You guys all recapped it. I thought, facilitation of it was fantastic and a great opportunity for lots of people to have discussions and weigh in. General plan celebration. I rode on the train at the regional park, the Truckee Donner Railroad Society. It was so much fun. My child loved it too. He went on it multiple times. I only went on it once. Dad took him the extra times. And then also attended on that same day the Mexican Heritage Festival at the regional park. That was super fun. Great music, delicious food. Erica Mertens was out there along with many of our nonprofits. So just a fantastic event. Attended the last Mountain Housing Council wrap-up meeting. That is, coming to an end. And they presented on the 2023 needs assessment, which Lynn gave us a little brief snippet of. It sounds like we'll get a more deep presentation, but our needs assessment, the total number of unmet needs actually went down from the last needs assessment. I think it was in the 9,000 range, and now it's in the 8,200 range. There was discussion on, is it people who have given up or people moved to Reno and are just, I'm going to live in Reno now, so I don't even care about thinking about coming back anymore. So some good discussion around that. And again, there's a lot of data to look at and where the needs are, but appreciate that collaboration. It's been 6 years of the Mountain Housing Council, so exciting, the work that was accomplished. Wildfire Community Forum, Chief Renfro, I think you have a second career as a facilitator if policing doesn't work out for you. I thought that was fantastic, along with Bob and everyone else. Great event. Had the pleasure of riding around on e-bikes with Good Day Sacramento. Cody Stark was up here, Jen, Elford, Supervisor Bullock joined us, a few other folks. Super fun to just show off what we're doing in Truckee. And if anyone watched any bit of Good Day Sacramento, it showed the vibe of Truckee too. We were all having fun and, riding bikes when it's 40 degrees outside. And we did encourage the reporter to come back again, ride TART Connect with us, profile some other things. So I know we'll be hoping to get them back up here. We had a R2SC RFP subgroup meeting. That's a lot of letters, but the RFP is out on that consultant, and so we'll be excited to see the response from that great group subcommittee. And then the mayor-manager meeting last week, Supervisor Bullock and Ariel with Nevada County were there. Unfortunately, the other two cities couldn't make it for other reasons, but it was a great small conversation. It was at Donner Lake Kitchen, so we enjoyed hosting it in Truckee. And that was it. So with that, thank you all for being here, and we'll see you soon. The meeting is adjourned.